Welcome to the Fantasia podcast. Grand finals was absolute cinema, and we are here to discuss it all. We will be grading FNCS finals performances and results. We did this last season. People seem to enjoy it. We're running it back. We got Boop and Harry in the building for EU, and later on we'll have a lovely NA panel for you guys since you all enjoyed that so much last week. Look, before we start grading teams and making enemies within the community, what do you think of that Grands, boys? Unbelievable, no?
I mean, you said it best. Cinema. That's the only word to describe it. Both regions, especially. But on the EU side, it was just every game. It was one team would have a dud, the next team would win. The leaderboard would change so much. It was the storylines changed so much throughout. And it was just such an exciting Grands to watch. One of the best we've had for a long time. I felt like we've been on a good run with Grands and like global championships. It feels like constantly we're saying, oh, that's the best Grands. Oh, this was the best Grands. And it's like, but this was the best Grands.
This was,
Oh, yeah. I mean, we always talk about how Grand Finals are like, you can't prepare yourself ever for a Grand Finals as a player, right? Like, the things that happen in this Grands are things that are like unprecedented when it comes to like divisional cups and stuff like that. Like, there's nothing like it. And, this Grand Finals had just so many things and storylines coming through with people calling each other, the griefing, how close it was in certain areas. Teams that you never expected to do well, to do well as well. So, yeah, I think there might have been some few better Grand Finals, but these are very much in the top three, I think, for sure.
All right. Well, I think that's very fair. Let us know in the comment section below. What did you think of this FNCS Grand Finals? Is this your favorite Grand Finals ever? I think NA fans in particular will probably say yes, because I feel like NA in particular just had so much going there. But generally, EU and NA, where do you rate the weekend of Grands? And if you are a fan of one of the other regions and you're upset that I completely ignored them, hold that, because I'm going to keep doing that. So starting off with EU, we have to say congratulations to Vanya, Pixie, and Marius for winning EU. Definitely somewhat of a surprise winner, I guess, in a way. Like, I didn't see a lot of people predict them to win. Funny enough, some of our commenters do know ball. There was one guy in particular that I saw his comment. He was like, I've got Vanya, Pixie, Marius, man. It just makes the most sense. Like, he gave like great analysis, and I'm like, bloody hell, mate, this guy's bang on the money. So props to that guy. No, we should get that. If he's down, like, we'll get him on the pod for sure. And of course, you know, Vanya, two-time FNCS champion now. He was amazing last year. This time last year with Major 2 was the one he got his first, and he does it again. Pixie picking up his first as well. Congrats to him. And the TikTok star himself, Marius, the son of Boop, finally picking up.
Thank you for that one. I'm sure mention that one even if you didn't say it, so it's fine.
I was gonna say it on the broadcast, but I thought it wasn't the appropriate time. You know, it's like we're celebrating his FNCS win here, and I'm like making
something else.
I don't know.
I'm so proud of him, man.
Yeah, no, good on him. But of course, also the very first Danish FNCS winner, the first one to do it.
I can't
crazy to think about. Yeah, great. I think we need to start there just quickly. Like, crazy to think about. Obviously, there's a person who I think everybody thought would finally be the first Danish person to do it. And of course, that would have been Anas. But, you know, we're like, you know, but props to him, right? You know, for doing it for Denmark. Of course, Denmark's been like, in my opinion, they've been like the best country in Fortnite. When you look at population to the performances and the results, it's been fantastic. And so, we got our first game of the episodes. We got a bunch of games sprinkled throughout the episode today. Our first game, shout out to Clutch for sorting out the games as well for this episode. The Danish curse was finally broken. A total of 13 Danish players have finished second in an FNCS. Can you guys name all 13?
13?
Is that individual 13 people?
13 individuals have come second place in an FNCS from Denmark. Can you guys name?
Should we go back and forth, Boop? Like, I go one, you go one.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you want to go first? Because that's easy.
No, fine. Yeah, I'll take the obvious. Anas, go on, take the obvious one.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna take the other obvious one. Thomas AZ.
Okay.
Well, Tjino, just.
Yep. Yeah. Of course, recently.
Fredoxie.
Look great. Yeah, you guys got that. Yeah.
Pablo.
Oh, so that one's a surprise one, but
shot one.
Flick.
Flick, of course, did it. Yes, with Thomas and Anes.
Now we're at a problem. Now,
How many are we at? Is that 7?
7
You
we're
got
at.
6.
Oh, it's 6.
Wait,
Oh yeah, we got 2 trios. We
Oh
just
yeah,
got
2
the
trios. Yeah.
It's tripping.
Trippin has gotten second
Trippin?
place. Yes,
Hottie.
Yeah, that was where I was going.
Hottie FN.
he did. And that was
Yeah.
in chapter 2, season 7.
Yeah.
And then Elocrats.
Yep. Shout out to Ella Kratz, who works for Blast now and does production behind the scenes.
That's 9. Oh shit! The 2
4
other.
more.
No,
There's
there's 2
4
more. There's 11.
No, is it 13 or
It's
11?
13.
13.
Yeah,
there's
Oh
4
shit!
more.
Trippin, Hot, Elocrats.
I might have one more. Can you list the ones we've got already? So I'm not.
So you guys have Anas, Thomas, Flick. You have Tjino,
said
Fred,
Flick.
Pablo, and you have Trippin, Hottie, and Elocrats.
Trippin, Hottie,
Who the
Elocrats. Danish players in history. I
Who
mean,
the fuck else has placed well?
there's probably someone that we don't even think of as Danish, and that is
Wait,
Danish.
I think I've got one
I'm
more.
drawing a blank. You go.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
I've got Refsgard.
Rasgard is one of them.
Ascot is
Yeah.
Danish. Well, okay. iDrop's Norwegian, and Dreader's Norwegian. It's one of those people.
So you now have what 3 remaining that you need to get. These last 3
They
are
old?
all players who are like you'd consider them older Danish players. Like they're
Okay.
like
Yeah,
the best times in their career are probably behind them.
So they still play.
One of them still plays for sure. He played this season with another one of these Danish players that you've already named. The other 2 I don't think play anymore.
I mean, the only one that comes to
Okay.
mind is Rule, but I don't think Rule's ever made a grand final. So
Is Rule getting second?
Wait,
in
wait!
FNC?
I don't
know
think he's
it.
ever done it.
I know
Okay.
it. I know them. It's Hellfire,
Hellfire is one of them.
Hellfire, yeah.
and he played with Flois.
Flois is correct.
Lois.
And
Now,
so I
missing
need
one
now
more?
I'm lost.
one last
They land-
person.
They landed
Okay,
like
is-
Lazy Lake. That's
This
where they
might maybe I'm misremembering this, but is it Higgy FN?
No.
No.
I'll give you a hint. It was in chapter 2, near the end of chapter 2.
Yeah, there's trios, but like it's still drawing a blank. It doesn't matter
Trios
unless it was
back then.
All Stars. It could have been all because All Stars was
Okay, I'll
8.
give you another hint. Chapter 2, season 8,
Oh, so
specifically.
the last.
That doesn't help me.
What
what season? What meta was that? Like what was the map looking
That
like?
was it was that
I couldn't
Alien
remember.
meta or it was Grand Royale? I think it was Grand Royale. One of those. It's
Wasn't Grand
called.
Royale season 9? Like chapter 2, season 9? Was Grand Royale?
Was there a season?
Wait,
9?
who won that season?
I can't remember, honestly.
Okay,
Who won that
so-
season?
Probably Chapix and
It would have
Chapix probably or
it
something.
would have been like Chapix and Tayson or something. I don't know.
Who Traffic Man's Hen, I think. Who?
I mean,
was-
I think he used to play with me. I think Higgy was a close one. I think there's someone that's like close to Higgy FN back in the day.
So they don't play.
Dexy?
That
No,
Dexy
Dexy's-
doesn't.
Not
No.
this year.
Either Dexy, no, neither of the control.
Let us know in the comment section below if you have it, because I'm sure there's
yeah.
somebody who does have it.
I'm trying to think. Who have I missed? Good, because that means they were good going into chapter 3. Who the fuck was good going into chapter
They're like
3?
an OG. This last person is like a proper OG Danish player, like proper OG.
No, I know it.
You do know it.
It starts with a K, I think. No.
There's a K in there. It doesn't start with a K. There's a K in there.
Oh, he qualified. He qualified World Cup, right?
I think he. I don't.
Yes,
think
I
he-
know exactly. I know the person. I guess can't think of the name.
Who the
I
fuck
can't
is
remember if he
this?
did. He might have.
I think he's qualified. He qualified World Cup. I think he was one of the people that did really well as one of the Danish guys. I remember.
Do you guys need another hint?
Yeah, give another
Yes.
hint, another hint.
He was very much associated with a UK org for a long time.
EP is that the org?
And me saying UK org might throw you off because they're also known for something else.
I was going to
UK
say
August,
Guild. I was going to say Guild,
EP,
but then it's
Guild.
only Anas and. Was he on Guild? There's no way he was on Guild. What? Well, I'm lost. I'm actually so stumped. I haven't got a clue. What org were they on? Will that give it away or?
If I say the org is too easy, I feel like.
I mean, there's Guild and there's EP. I think back in the UK org days.
Yes, but remember, this org is known for they're known for something that is not being an org. No, like
stride supremacy.
Okay. This is another hint.
Yeah.
I think this is a good hint. Let me know if this is a good hint after. I shouldn't like them. Think about me and why I might not like them. And they are a UK-based organization known for something that is
Manchester City.
Okay.
Oh, it's Scram. It's fucking Scram.
It's Scram.
It's Scram.
Scram did qualify World Cup, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
that was the one. Yeah,
he did. He played with Mexi. Cold. Yeah, Luke.
Yeah, Scram.
That is it. Scram came second in Chapter 2, Season 8. So those are all 13 Danish players to get second places in FNCS. All of them have just 1 second place, except for Thomas, who has 4 or 5. Sorry, or not 4. Anyway. Shout out to Denmark. That's
a lot.
Yeah, let us know how many you got in the comment section below, because I don't think I would have gotten some of those. Some of those were for OGs. Well, let's start off with our grade for Vanya, Pixie, Marius. I think it can't be anything for me other than an A+. This is a team who, coming into Grands, many people expected them to do well. Many people expected them to qualify for the Global Championships after coming third last season, but to outright win the whole thing, hats off to them.
I mean, yeah, it was crazy. I'll hold my hands up, and I did not think they were going to win, because obviously I thought Queasy was going to do a lot better than he ended up doing. I thought that would end up making height a little bit harder for them, but yeah, they just looked incredible. I think the most incredible thing for me was, even when they didn't have the games where they had early height, they still found a way to get height and get those big games. And they still had a lot of games where they were dying early, like 13th and 12th, or like solo clutches to 8s. And it wasn't like a perfect tournament, as it never is on EU. It's such a hard region, but they made those games, when they got to endgame stacked, matter so much. They got the most out of every game. And I think that is a massive hats off to them of defining the way they want to play and their play style, and making it work so well that you can get 4 wins in a lobby of this stacked. I mean, it was just incredible to watch, to be fair.
I think a lot of people's criticism of them for this grand, or a lot of pros, the way they would approach this, is that they got a lot of zones, and that's the reason why they won. But I think at the same time, they're a team that, when they do get zones, they're usually just the ones that win that game. And that doesn't happen always when it comes to people having and pulling zones, right? We've had a lot of zones pulling bottom right. Those teams aren't winning those games every time in this grand finals. Center zone, those teams, Setty, Harry, aren't winning those games that often as well. So with what they were given in this grands, Vanya, Pixie, and Marius, they were able to, succeed and win those games. I agree with Harry, though. It wasn't the team that I expected to win. I mean, they came with really good momentum, right? I think they won like 2 games in an Eval Cup, but we hadn't really seen them in a lobby with Queasy in the lobby, right? Like, we talk about the only team in high ground is usually Vanya, Pixie, Marius if Queasy isn't there. So we haven't seen them with Queasy in the lobby. And then maybe, partially why Queasy wasn't relevant in this grand finals compared to them is maybe them doing is the reason why they did well, or they just played really well. Regardless, I think they deserved it because they felt like one of the more consistent teams in the 7th grand finals.
Yeah. Look, they were incredible. I can't remember the exact game it was, but there was the one game where they were up on height and you saw Queasy looking up for it and they were trying to take it. And I think you see Swizzy and Merstach start cranking up, and Vanya, Pixie, Marius just stomped them out. Like, just not having it at all. And that to me was very symbolic of, what this team has become. It's the stat that I kept like bringing up on a broadcast a bunch this season was the fact that I remember last season, whenever they were in top 2 situations, it was terrible to watch. It was like you were watching people who had never played comp Fortnite at times. Like, they looked so shaky, so scary. Obviously, they came through last chance qualifier last season. But if you watch those 2 games where they were in the final 2, they looked so shaky in those. Like, it was hard to watch at times. And the number was that I found, or that Kinch found, shout out to Kinch, was that they had 10 top 2 scenarios last season and won one of them in set lobby finals. Wow. Like, that's insane.
Milkers.
Right? And like, this season, it's been far better. Like, the fact that they've come out and won 4 games in finals is incredible to me. This team has really sort of evolved into, you know, a well-oiled machine and like a genuine big threat in the region. And of course, now that they're champions, it feels weird having like, whenever we get new champions, it kind of feels weird in EU because I feel like we're so used to having like these repeat champions.
Yeah. Same names always.
Right. But it's nice to have sort of Pixie and Marius come up there, especially because they are two players who have just been on the rise the past like year and a half. Which is, you know, a great story for those guys as well.
They're a team where I think when they first came out, I think I was like, wow, this is a fucking powerhouse team. Right. And then they came through and they're like, oh, well, they weren't very good this tournament. And then, oh, they lost the spawn a bunch. But like their growth since then, because they stuck together, they battled it out. They had a 4th place, I think, last FNCS Grand Finals. So it's only been momentum up. And yeah, I mean, just look at the name value in that team. You know, like how could they not win an FNCS at some point in EU if you look at all the names in there?
Yeah, and to like branch off what you said, it's like you expect these guys to be a team who key, right? You got Vanya, Pixie, Marius. You're expecting those guys to just run over whatever side of the map they're going to land on, but their playstyle is just so consistent. It's just the same things and similar rotates, and then the end games. It's so like set in stone what they're going to do. It's so strict what they're going to do, when they're going to take height, how they're going to take height. And if they don't take height, how they're going to get it later. It's like, it's not what you expect out of when you, obviously last season, Vanya, Pixie, Marius, how they were going to play. We expected to key and them to key and just get their surge by fighting, but they've clearly showed that you get 3 incredible players, put them together, get a nice strict game plan together, you can have a lot of success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Final thoughts on these guys moving forward. What are the early expectations for LAN with these 3, considering it will be Marius's first LAN, Vanya's hopefully first LAN. If they can get that situation sorted out, they got, you know, a good amount of time now to get it done. Of course, they had the same amount of time last year and couldn't get it done.
It's an EU this time, at least. So
true, actually, yeah, it should be actually easier for him to get to France, right? Than to America. And Pixie's been on LAN as well. So he's got a bit of experience there. Yeah, he did quite well there. So what are your early LAN expectations of these guys?
It's hard to judge, right? Because if I'm looking at the top 2 EU compared to like the top 2 NA, you know, I feel like the top 2 NA are better than the top 2 EU this season. Looking at like just name value and the way that they played. So like LAN expectations for this trio. We've seen them have struggles for like finding a draw spot. I think that's number 1. It's like they're probably like, even though they have 3 of the best fighters in EU, like their spawn fighting has looked weak at times. I think so that might be something that's slightly problematic for them. There won't be a team that's gonna like for the best spawn on the map, because I think a lot of the other big names reserve that. I would be surprised if they placed. I mean, they'll probably place like a 6th or 7th at LAN, I think, right now.
Oh, that's I think predicting them to get like a top 10, I think it makes sense, or like a top 8, I think makes sense. Yeah. I think that's a reasonable spot.
I don't think they'll win. I don't see them winning right now.
I'm hearing all this analysis and this Peterbot and Clix and this and that. You got to remember, this is EU. This is in France. These are players, all 3 of them on French orgs. There is no chance. Reigning champions. I mean, when it comes to it, well, don't know if they will be reigning champions then, but you've got to have some more expectation. We can't go into like, oh, they'll get 6th or 7th.
That's fair.
Like,
that's fair.
They won FNCS in one of the most stacked FNCSs with a lot of top teams. You've got to put some respect onto their name and go, you know what? At this point, they are the best team in EU, or probably 2nd best team in EU. You know, it depends how you think of the Veno situation. But at that point, you've got to say, okay, they're in contention to win. They have to be. You know, that's just the nature of it.
You've swung me, Harry. So I'm with you. We need to be pushing these guys to the moon. The French org thing as well, I didn't consider, but you're right. Gentlemates, Havoc. You know, we got to back those boys on the French home crowd.
Final grade.
All right. Well,
we need to our grade.
well, I said A+. Yeah. Where would you guys have them at?
A++. Yeah, literally as far up as possible. Yeah.
Exceed the expectations and they win. A+.
Yeah. And that's 2 back-to-back wins for Flooded Frogs in EU.
Ooh,
so see if the Flooded Frogs streak keeps going. All right. So the next team, our 2nd place team, the full Danish squad of Tjino, Pablo, and Fredoxie. I mean, what a story for these guys. Obviously, coming into it at the very start of the season, Fredoxie's coming off the back of not qualifying for the finals while playing with Thomas HD and Trippin. Pablowingu, unfortunately, doesn't get the chance to play Grands because of some whole messed up situation there. To this day, I still don't really understand what happened there. And then Tjino made Grands, played with Pink and Nebs, and chose not to play them anymore. He said, I don't want to play these guys anymore. I want to play with Pablo and Fred. Then at one point in the season, like, they weren't actually playing with each other again, but then they all ended up back to each other. We're thinking they're contested at Mars Meadows by the best team in the region. They get it uncon 12 out of 12 games, or, you know, somewhat, depending on how you look at that last game and how that went.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they are pushing and fighting for winning it till the last game. Like, crazy weekend for these guys.
If Pink didn't have trio options for next season, I'd say now he does, because that man's magic of creating teammates after they drop him is incredible. I mean, it's a team that I think a lot of us always. I mean, Fredoxie is a player. I'll just talk about Fredoxie. I feel like Fredoxie player, a lot of people always criticize. I've known Fredoxie for like a long time. I've been friends with him since like chapter 4. We played like ranked and shit back then, and he's always someone I'm like, wow, this guy's fucking insane. But he's the laziest motherfucker you ever meet, you know? Like, he trolls, he runs around with double pickaxe, ice cream pickaxes, you know? In FNC's grand finals as well. So it's not someone you usually take seriously when it comes to these sort of tournaments. And he hasn't had, like, the best results back then as well. But this is finally one of those seasons that I've seen Fredoxie actually lock in and grind. You know, he plays every scrim, he VOD reviews, he tries to improve. And he's also one of the teams, the players that a lot of pros have always respected as well, because he's the go-to guy when it comes to wanting to win a spawn fight. Whenever you want to win a spawn fight, you go to Fredoxie, say, hey, can you help me practice spawn fights? That's your guy. So I think it was about time he gets a result like this. Wasn't expecting it to be this season, but, you know, a little bit of hard work and a team that isn't afraid to make mistakes, isn't afraid to like W key as well at Hopeful Heights. Wasn't one of the teams that traded a lot of Surge either, if you looked at their game plan. I think an unreal performance from them. And I think Denmark's back, you know? Like, I think Pablowingu's always been that player as well that's been really, really good, but, like, couldn't really find teammates. He's always stuck it out with bevies. No offense to bevies, but, like, he stuck it out with bevies and never wanted to split. I'm not saying bevies is bad, by the way. I'm just saying he never wanted to split, right? They were, like, an unstoppable duo that never wanted to split. Even they had the worst placements ever sometimes. And then they kept fighting each other. Like, yeah. I think it's that performance that was going to break them out of their shell now that I think is going to push them to be more consistent in future grand finals as well now.
Yeah, I think you make great points, like, about especially Fred, because it's funny because Fred's always, you know, had this reputation of being like a crazy off-spawn player. And I always felt like, as much as that is clearly true, because you know, again, he has been that go-to guy, I was like, he's never really cashed in that off-spawn aura, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I always thought, like, it got to the point where I started thinking it's a bit of a facade now. Like, I'm like, maybe you're not actually that crazy off-spawn. Like, sure, you're great for helping brag or whatever, but, like, you know, I think it was after, like, last year where they didn't con Grimgate and, like, they landed near it and then, like, were keying in or whatever. I was like, mate, you're fully Fredoxie, mate. Con him off spawn, you know, it's only Malibuca. What's they gonna do? And you know, it was good to see him almost have that dub this season and finally cash in on all of his off spawn aura that he's been building up for the past couple of years. And of course, you know, the talent has always been there. It's just been about like platforming it correctly. You know, I remember playing when he was playing for Juriki back in the day. It was like the first time I'd ever like seen him play up close, and I was like, "Buddy, this guy's nuts." On Pablo, I was very disrespectful of Pablo in my mind going into the season. I remember having a conversation with Harry off the podcast, being like, Pablowingu in 2025, what are we doing it? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, I was a bit like, and it's because it's just been so long, right? Like, there was a time where Pablowingu was the next up Danish player. You know, they were doing incredibly well on FNCS Grands. You know, they were qualifying for invitation, like he was online, you know, like that, you know, he was a top player in EU. And then it just sort of always petered out, like you said, because they were just stuck with bevies and it just wasn't anything crazy. And I'd still heard from people like, no, Pablo's decent, you know, Pablo's pretty good. Pablo is still very, very good. And it's actually kind of changed the way I look at a lot of players in terms of just like, there are so many players out there who are insanely talented, but just don't have either the right teammates, you know, haven't had the right, you know, series of luck to platform them in a situation. Like, because look, let's just be real. They had uncon mass medals for 12 games. Like, you should be doing good, but like, still, nobody would have been like expecting them to come second. And
no,
they've done incredibly well in that situation. And I don't even have to talk much about Tjino because Tjino is just fucking crazy. We know how crazy Tjino is.
Yeah, I just wanted to say about Tjino, because obviously I could literally agree with everything you said about Fredoxie and just put on Tjino, as in when it comes to work ethic. Like, I was in the same org as him. I was his coach guy in chapter 3, start of chapter 3, so a long time. And his biggest problem always has been work ethic. He's always had this talent. Everyone's kind of known he's had this talent. He's been crazy, and whenever people have played tokens, you know, Pink took the chance on him, and people have known how good Tjino is, but he's never really had the work ethic. And I wonder if them going to Germany, and from what Fredoxie said, how boring Germany was, that literally all they could do was play Fortnite and VOD review it and everything, kind of just locked them in. Because it is just 3 players who, as we've kind of touched on, who had the potential. People have been talking about for a long time. It's like, these aren't new players. These are players who have this potential for years now. These are players who have been in the same sort of like placements for so long, and it feels like it kind of just all worked out. They got the right work ethic. They got into the right environment together, and it just all kind of worked perfectly for them. And EU is exciting, man. EU is exciting. We are going into like next FNCS with like 6 or 7 top trios who are all going to be fighting it out, and I'm so excited for it. And yeah, to touch the final point I want to say is, you said about Fredoxie and the Osborne Aura. He's already tweeted he's landing the best spot. You know he's conning Peterbot at Globals. You know this is going to happen. Which, I mean, I'm not complaining at all with this. I am all aboard the Fredoxie hype trade if he can test Peterbot. I'm all aboard.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun conversation if we get closer to Globals and that's what's happening. I will say, is this going to now reopen the 0 ping floodgates? Are we now going to be talking? Because it's funny, because when you look at NA, like all the good NA players just go to play on 0 ping, right? Like they all just move to Dallas, or back when it was like Virginia or whatever, right? In EU, like we don't really see that. Like players will come for boot camps for like, you know, grants and stuff. But even then, it's not as much. I feel like back in the day, people used to do it a bit more, but now we're seeing it sort of happen a lot more nowadays again. I mean, is there just a lot of top FNCS winning talent that just doesn't have 0 ping, so they aren't competing?
Maybe Stuttgart is just Dagestan, you know? Like, that's where you send the kids to go to train. There's nothing to do there except hard work and work ethic, essentially. I mean, again, like, we had this conversation all the time. You're not becoming an FNCS Grand Finals winner, you know, if you go to Stuttgart, boys, you know? If you already have the talent, then maybe. I'll be honest, if there was a place in EU that was, like, 0 ping, there was fun clubs, there was shit to do, like, I think everyone would have already been there. But, like, compared to like Dallas, like when you go to Dallas, you know all the Fortnite pros are there. You can hang out with the homies. You can't really do that in EU, right? There's not like a central place where there's fun things to do. So yeah, I think 0 ping does matter a lot of the times. We've seen even like Sky, he got second in the solo cash cup on 0 ping. You know, Fredoxie won a solo cash cup on 0 ping as well. Like, yeah, it matters when you're at top level. It also matters a lot for your confidence as a player. I think mindset and mentality is very important. Knowing you can hold a wall and knowing you can take someone's wall in the late game allows you to make more plays and stuff like that. So for sure, it makes a difference. But it's only if you already have that talent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Makes sense. And I'm very happy for them, because they very much made me look like a Wally. Because I was like giving it all the big on the group stage broadcast. I was like, hey, Tjino, man, you can't be dropping pink and Nems and then you're not even calling grands. And then they bloody come and get second, which must feel good for them. I think Fred listens to the podcast, so maybe he'll be smiling listening to this.
He sent me a clip this morning of like 3 months ago, and I was talking about like globals. I was like, Fred, I'll be at Lyon, bro. I know. I wonder if you're gonna be there, man. It's like, I'll see you there, or you're gonna have to try. And like, he sent me that clip this morning. He's like, you fucking bum.
He's got them all saved.
Yeah, bro, all the pros take shit mad personal. Yeah, like they actually hold it.
But
You
it's
know?
also motivation for them, I think
True,
Fred also he
true.
said on Twitter, he's like, I needed this, I needed this
Yeah,
because a lot of people didn't believe in me. So, there you go, Fred. Well done. I'm proud of
I
you,
think
man.
as well, as long as I think a lot of them also know it's like in good faith. Like I don't think. I'd like to hope Tjino doesn't think I actually like hated him and was like, you know what I mean?
The
But
DM say
who knows?
otherwise before the podcast, but it's,
Okay, buddy. So I'm always doing it. All right. Shout out to Denmark though, man. Unbelievable weekend for Denmark. Let's talk about our third place team: Pixx, Darm, and Demus.
Or the boys. The
new,
clutch.
the new Polish team. This is
they
now
are the Polish.
They have been.
Polish team.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just it was so fun.
We didn't give a grade.
A plus.
Okay, A plus.
The whole season's A plus.
Yeah.
Like this,
A plus. Yeah. Okay. Now back to Polish.
Well, even though on the last pod I was talking about how I expect them to do really well, and I did for a lot of it. I did expect them to come second or third, but my worry after day one, you watched game one, day one. I think it was Demus or it might have been Pixx. I can't remember. And they were fighting in Storm, and he just missed so many shots on a guy in a box. Like it was like, and I was so worried that because maybe the pressure's on, when you're the difference of going into your first grand finals and, you're kind of an underdog. There's no expectation to going into this grand finals. Now they're not in conversation to win, but there is a world that they could win an FNCS, right? If things go right, and as we saw on day two, if they had the same day one, they could have won. But then it's day one starts and they're performing so poorly. Like their end games look messy, Surge looks messy, their fighting doesn't look as clean as it should be. And I was worried. I was like, they're just dudding. And in my head, I'm already thinking, what's the new Polish trio is going to be next season? Cammy's not doing as well. They're not doing as well. And day two, they just showed up everything that kind of we had learned about them throughout the past 2 seasons, how dominant they can be, how consistent they can be. They had the best individual day out of the 2 days out of any trio. It was just so consistent and clean, but also they're just not afraid to fight. They're not afraid to get scrappy when it needs to. They're always able to get those refreshes when they need to happen. They are a joy to watch, and I just hope this is again not just their day 2 they didn't really have anything to play for and they just played out their minds. It's just that's the level we should expect from them, what they did on day 2, and they can push on from that because that was the best performance of the weekend in my opinion, that day 2.
Yeah, for sure. It's a team that I think the momentum going into this grand finals wasn't that high. Right, so a lot of people put them lower. I thought they'd get caught up in like the bullshit that happens over at Magic Masters a lot of the time. There's always fights at Magic Masters, but I think day 1 that's what they did get involved in. I think game 1 they literally just died in Magic Masters. In a random fight, and they changed it up in day number 2. I think they're doing an excellent job for the Polish marketing campaign. The Poland used to be seen as a weak, non-W keying sort of region,
Sure.
country. Yeah. And they've re-envisioned that and shown that, hey, we got something to offer. We can actually get frag into the late game because they're always in the late game with like 7 eliminations, going crazy, the trio. I'd love to like hear the comms in that trio because I don't know if they make YouTube videos or like even if they did, if there's like a translation to it. I just want to know how that team plays, Like I know like Demus is like literally one of the best players in the EU, right? Like that guy is fucking insane. Like Thanos winning solo cash cups twice in a row. But there's not much we know about Darm and Pixx as like individual players. So I'd love to know what goes on for those guys because they're in that trio and they're involved as well. So yeah, crazy stuff.
Yeah, I don't have much to add after you guys put it perfectly. This is for me another A+ season for them. I think we rated them A+ last season, and they've like last season they broke the record in EU in trios for the best placement for 3 players playing in their first grands, right? And then they've just broken their own record, right? like or not that record because obviously it's their second grands now, but like they've done even better in the placement, which is like insane. The trajectory of this team needs to be studied in terms of just like how they've so quickly become elite EU players and like a winning threat in an FNCS is mental. I 100% agree with you, Boop. I feel like I still don't know enough about these guys just as players, which is a shame. I don't know what to expect from them on LAN, but like I am now fully, last week I was a bit like tentative. I was a bit like, I don't know, man. Like I think these guys will do good, but like eventually, you know,
You're
it's
aboard
got,
the
like,
hype train.
plateau. Yeah, like I thought it had to plateau. I'm on the hype train. Like this team's got to, like, you know, we got to back them all the way in global. And like all of them playing on their first LAN, like unironically could be just like the biggest cook in terms of just like managing that pressure and the expectation, and then, you know, continuing to perform. Can't wait to see what these guys do. Yeah, I think we all would give them an A+.
A+.
There you go. All right. So we have 3 teams that we've gone through. So I'm gonna do another game break. We got some more games today. This one is one I didn't really understand, and I'm sure Clutch is gonna complain at me for not understanding it and saying it wrong. But Vanya, Marius, and Pixie had 4 wins out of the 12 games this weekend. To put into perspective how big of an impact those wins had, can you guess where they rank on average placement with their wins and where they would rank without their wins?
As in, so you're saying like what that average placement is with, as in just in general with the 12 games, and then what the average placement is without the. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, repeat that one more time. It was a long one.
I understand.
Vanya, Marius, and Pixie have 4 wins out of 12 games this weekend.
Okay.
To put it into perspective, how big of an impact their wins had on, you know, them winning the tournament, can you guess where they rank on average placement with their wins and where they would rank without their wins?
Okay.
So I think I know where they are with their wins already, because I saw Fredoxie's tweet. I don't know if he actually had best average placement, but I saw their match history, and it was literally 120th in the.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Anyways,
finally stops talking.
Oh, where did I cut out? Where did I cut? I thought you were just thinking really hard, Boop, on my side. It just,
no, you were like this, and then you cut out after that.
But no, I think Fredoxie's first on average placement. I think they're second overall average placement.
Okay.
With their...
trying to think of someone. I want to say I'm only different to Hris. I'm gonna say the third in average placement with the wins. Without the wins, I'm gonna say like I think most of the games were like 20th and 21st when they died. So like without the wins, I'm gonna say something like 16th.
That's so annoying. Placement? That is actually the exact number I was thinking. So now I actually have to go.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was, man. I'm sure it was.
No, I was gonna go. No. So obviously gotta go different, right? So I think they got.
We're gonna do Price's Right rules. So it's like if you're the closest, but you're over, you lose.
You say that. He's gonna just say 17th now.
No. I'll be fair. I think they were. 12th is way. No, 13th. I'll go 13th. 13th.
13th for Harry. Well, get your guesses in the comments. Let us know what you think. So Boop said 3rd with their wins and 16th without. Harry said 2nd with their wins and 13th without. When it comes to with their wins, Harry was bang on the money. They were 2nd on average placement with their wins.
I was gonna say that though.
Without their wins though, it's better than I thought, funnily enough. Which I don't think was the point of this game.
But, I thought it would be awful. Like,
yeah. They were 9th, which was Harry's the closest.
That's not that. That's nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be like, I guess there was a couple of like 8s and 4, but I guess they just made enough endgames, because when did they actually like die to Surge early or die in a fight early? It was rare.
Very rare, right?
Yeah, it just felt like they just had no good endgames when Zone wasn't on them, right? Like that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it did feel they died first moving constantly. It felt like if they didn't have.
Always a solo running around or something, yeah.
All right, before we get back to grading the teams, I didn't think we'd be doing this because we've not done this in a long time, but I realized because we've not done this in a long time, a lot of people didn't realize this. So, super thanks. Thank you very much all for your super thanks. We've not read out super thanks for quite some time now for a multitude of different reasons that we won't get into, but I do want to thank some of the people because we got a bunch, and I said to people like, we're not doing them anymore, but this will be the last time for now, at least. It's not like a permanent thing. If you've been watching the podcast for a long time, you will know there's segments that have we used to have, we don't have. You try things based off of the data. We bring things in, but take things out, figure it out. But I want to first thank Liam Allen. On last episode, he said, don't know if the end of the pod talk is a joke or not, but I truly love you guys. I've truly been carried through my work weeks this year by listening to the pod on lunch breaks and on commutes. Thank you so much for everything. However long it lasts, 3 more weeks or 3 more years, I'll be listening.
That's really nice.
Oh, you won't be because this is the last episode.
Yeah, Levin hates the podcast. He just wants it to end any second now. So he's just...
Yeah, you thought Hotline Offender ending was bad. Wait till this one ends.
Yeah.
Oh.
These guys are funny. This isn't the last app, but it's one of the last ones. We only got a couple more left. Bobby, thank you very much, Liam.
One of the last ones of Advantasia, yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Liam. Appreciate you. Robert Graff, shout out to Robert. He's supported the channel a bunch in the past as well. He said, this crew is the best. I really enjoyed the long pod. Makes my drives to work much more enjoyable. Thanks for all the great work to everyone that participated. Everyone was loving the long app, last week. It's been a while since we've had a long app like that. So, and he said, quick thoughts. The EU banter was great. It was nice to hear from the NA guys, but I missed the opportunity from some of the EU bias from when Levin, Hris, Harry, and Boop discussed NA. People don't know what they want. They don't know what they used to hate when we were NA bias. Now they want it back. Look, I don't know. You guys got to decide.
Just wait till the program. Just wait. My bias will be there in the program. Just you wait.
Yeah. All right, brilliant. This is a lovely shout out for Teddy. Maybe I'll read this bit for when Teddy's here. Actually, I'll save the rest of this for Teddy because he said something nice about Teddy. And he said, all jokes aside, I truly look forward to these pods as we build towards Grand. I can't wait for LAN. Just wish we had more chances to see EU versus NA. Enjoy the weekend and thanks again. Don't we all? Don't we all wish we had more of that?
More lands.
Competitive lands. Yes. Because Pro-Am's going to be great, but I also want to see the best of the best.
Hey, that's a competition.
It will be. It definitely will be. Clutch came in with a super thanks.
I already know.
Jesus Christ, not again, man.
Yeah.
Clutch said, donating on behalf of the Fantasia faithful to lobby for the removal of Coach Harry from our great podcast once more.
I mean, there's not even lobby. He does it himself. It's up to Harry himself.
I show up when I'm needed, Levin said I was needed last week out there,
No, what? No,
yeah.
They're not
it's like the bat signal. The bat signal's out.
Harry's
not doing this.
Cave.
Yeah,
guys, it's funny because we obviously every time there's someone not on an app, there's a lot of talk like that, right? People are like, "Where's this person? Where's it?" Like, I'm sure people will today be going, "It's our 50th episode and Reese Hub's not here." Like, what? Also, bloody hell, it's our 50th episode. Damn, kind of forgot that until just now. Yeah. Episode number 50, big one.
One.
But guys, when someone's not on the app, it doesn't mean they're just gone. It's just they couldn't do the app that week. Like, that's just how it is.
Because Levin's a dictator, and basically, if he doesn't like someone 1 week, he's just going to kick him off, and then the next week, he's like, if you begged to come back on the pod, all right, you're allowed back on. You're allowed back on. God, if you've been really nice,
please, Papa Levin, please let me on the podcast this week. I'll be good this week, I swear.
Just for that,
I mean, we'll really be. Oh. God damn it, guys. Well, let's see you guys.
What were you gonna say though?
I was gonna say, like, we're all busy people, except for Harry sometimes. So we got streams, we got I stream full time. I got businesses to run. Resub has a YouTube channel. Levin's on the broadcast.
I'm here.
It's funny because like we make the joke of like Harry not being busy, and he's here the least out of all of us. So it's like, where is he? Where is he? He doesn't stream anymore.
We need a morning routine with Harry. Like,
it's just a mysterious gimmick, It's, I'll be here when I'm here. We'll just see.
I think he left. So like, like when people say like absence makes the heart grow fonder. Like I think he left on purpose to like make people miss him, and it worked because you guys were missing him.
It likes the attention if he's not here. It's like, oh, where's Harry, guys? Where's Harry? Yeah, and we should make like a TikTok where you just do like the day in the life of people on Fantasia or some shit like that. Just to see how busy we are, man. Oh my god, so much
more their life for me.
Jesus.
Yeah, that'll be fun to see. 10K, who is a notorious super thanker, he said, sent a message like this a couple weeks back about Raz, Peter, and Poyo, but what but with what we are seeing with Veno, Rezon, and the mask situation, this is like a week ago he sent this, obviously this is all before games. Will we ever see the rules set in place? I'm not oblivious to the fact that this is happening with coaches through things like friend groups, or without coaches with things like friend groups. But to have a third party who you are paying involved has to be brought into Epic's attention. And when does it become colluding and consequences are giving? This eval, these guys have had the exact same rotate. It's like when BloodX and the Dumb Storm planned train season, but the teams he coached were on 2 different regions. Sorry if this is too long for a £2 super thank.
No.
It is
I
too
get
long,
what you're saying.
but we'll still address it. I'm just joking. Yeah, I mean, look, without getting into a massive conversation about it, because this is not the app for that, there are a lot of competitive integrity things that need to be addressed. And I responded in a comment to him. Like, I did message him in a comment and responded to him. But I think there's a lot of things that need to be addressed, especially with how the meta played out this season. I'm just hoping Epic do address it, especially with how this season went in particular.
I think there's, in my opinion, there's 2 things that mainly need to be addressed. Number 1 is live coaching. I think when something's not allowed on LAN and then it's allowed in the competition leading up to LAN, it's a gray area. It's kind of weird, you know. It's like, oh, so people are live coaching is a huge advantage. There's no hiding away from that. Being able to have someone in your ear who's not playing the game, doesn't have to worry about the mechanics of the game, literally just looking and being able to have a clear mind about decision making. That is obviously a huge advantage. Secondly is obviously people getting coached by the same teams. It is obviously that is also a gray area, because it's, you kind of have not an unfair advantage because you can find out by replays, but you kind of know what other teams are going to do, right? Because obviously your coach would probably tell you, you know, what other teams are more likely to do, or they'll know. So it is a weird area. And I do hope at some point Epic address it, whether it's like when it comes to grand finals, like the coaching one's harder, but live coaching, whether it's just putting people into like a set Discord or something so they can get live coach, something along those lines, that would help out a lot. But
I still can't believe they don't do that, so we get like comms on the broadcast.
Comms,
as well. Like that would be so sick. You know, I would have thought
everyone would do it too, because like it's either you play the grand finals or you don't.
No,
you
literally,
can force them into it. Like
that's
everything.
so easily, and I'm so shocked that Blast haven't done that. Like it would be, I swear, unless there's something I'm missing, I'm sure someone from Blast will like message me and be like, "You're an idiot." But like, sure, like it must be so easy for them to enforce. If you're playing in the FNCS Grand Finals of EU or NA, you have to be in this competitive Discord. Like that doesn't seem hard to do.
Yeah, it's also for like tournament regulation. If things go wrong, someone misses again in Malibuca, get crashed. Like, okay, guys, we gotta requeue real quick. Like, you know, like stuff like that.
It's
like,
easier to have support.
It should all be done manually. Yeah. And if someone gets banned, like I don't see why they wouldn't. But
yeah. So yeah, 10K. Look, just like you, man. There's things I think that are big gray areas that we all sort of acknowledge and like hope get resolved. All we can do is just keep respectfully probing Epic to address these things, which I think has somewhat happened this season. Like it's not been like as bad as it used to be years ago, where people people used to cry about things in much more petulant ways. And there's been petulance, but I think it's been a lot more like, hey, Epic, please address this, which I think is good.
I'd also say like the recent push in the last 2 weeks for like things to be changed. Let's be honest, people only complain when it doesn't benefit them a lot of the times, right? That's always how this goes. So like you'll see a few people complain about something the day before grand finals, and a lot of people be quiet about it because obviously they're the ones benefiting from it. So don't take like a massive social media push from a few people as like the general consensus of like the entire thing as well. Because like, yes, search trade is an issue, but it's been a thing in the game for like the last 2.5 years. Not saying it's right, but it has been, right? And maybe it's gotten worse, but whenever people complain about it, and I know this because I'm in the Epic Discord, and you see this every single time, it's usually to benefit themselves a lot of the time, right? Like I see people in the Discord like, hey man, this metal here, it's meant to be brick. This is meant to be brick, you know? And it happens to be a team that's like contesting them or like being top of the league. Like that's always the way it's gonna be. So like just keep that in mind. Like, there's a lot more that happens behind the scenes. Even worse things that happen behind the scenes than just surge trading. You know, like I go into, but like, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this game. It ain't the most competitive stuff.
Yeah. No. With that being said, the last super thank we'll read out is one from T-Shack, and big shout to T-Shack because T-Shack is one of the big FNTasia supporters. He's every single video, he's there in the comments, showing love, showing support. So thank you, T-Shack. for a long time now, like proper OG T-Shack is. And he said, 1 year anniversary and you guys are still disrespecting the GOAT Booger. The hate is so forced. Also, please don't end the podcast. He said, I've been watching ever since the first episode and it's always my favorite thing to listen to while I'm at work. And it's gotten me through a lot of times. Thank you for the amount of work you guys do for the Fortnite community. It's insane and so underappreciated. So big shout out to T-Shack.
Can I say something? How do all these people have jobs? That's what I'm surprised about. Like all these Fortnite compiers have jobs and real life things. I thought everyone was jobless.
I thought everyone was younger, but no, there's a lot of older people who enjoy competitive Fortnite.
Like, we don't need to disrespect Booger. He disrespects himself by his performances. I don't think there's anything more that happened.
Ooh.
Wow.
Oh, Harry, the line isn't concerned with
and now, before we get back to grading, you wouldn't have thought I would have done this, eh? Spotify, for all our Spotify listeners and audio listeners. Thank you for your support. I know sometimes they feel neglected. Like I read all the comments on Spotify all the time, and they all feel very neglected. But we do read your comments, and we know you're there. Zach in particular is like someone who's similar to T-Shack. Zach on Spotify comments on every episode. Sometimes he's upset with us. A lot of the time he's happy with us. And he was complaining, or he was maybe not complaining, but he was saying, you guys don't read YouTube comments anymore, so at least read the Spotify ones. And even though I just read that comment, their answer's no. So yeah, no, shout out to you, Zach, and everybody else who listens on Spotify. We appreciate you. And Zach was also like, yeah, love you all. So appreciate him and everyone else that listens. And wherever you listen to the podcast, man, thank you guys all for, following this journey. Obviously, it was our 1 year anniversary earlier this month. This is episode 50. It's been a fun journey. We're still figuring things out along the way. And there's things we never got to figure out that we might never figure out with, the end of the podcast or whatever. But at the end of the day, man, we appreciate you all for your support on this journey. And I know Hris isn't here, but pretend Hris said something nice and sentimental. And that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Enough of that. Enough of that. And no more super thanks. That's the other thing. Or like you can super thank. Like I want people to super thank because they want to show support to the pod. Do you know what I mean? So if you want to show some love and support to us, like super thank, absolutely. But just because you super thank doesn't mean you're like I don't want that to be like like a thing that people think. Like, so I don't want anyone to think they got scammed because they super thanked and we didn't read it out. Like it's not a contractual agreement that if you super thank, we'll read it out on the pod. But we do appreciate your super thanks, and I will personally reply to all super thanks for what that's worth, if you care. All right, back to the Fortnite, back to the ranking of the teams and the grading of the teams. Sorry, our next team, Ping, Wax, and Malibuca. What a weekend it was for them!
A roller
coaster.
Yeah,
roller coaster weekend, because they started off day one and they were the best team on the day by far. Looked unbelievable. Looked destined to win the tournament by the end of the 12 games. And unfortunately for them, day two rocked up and their worlds got rocked by Veno, Vico, Flickzy. Still managed to push through and finish in 4th place. What did we make of them this weekend? What's your grading like for these guys?
It's a weird I have a weird opinion on them because going into it, I had lower expectations than you would normally have for this trip. They weren't coming in on insane form in heats. They just about made it to grands. It wasn't that confident. It felt like, as we talked about, they were learning on the fly. It didn't really feel like they had the set way to play. They were dying to surge in heats, which, I mean, if you're a team of that caliber dying to surge in heats, that's always going to be a worry. And they come into this grands and they look incredible on day one. You get everything you kind of expect out of them. They're obviously getting a lot of surge from Lone Wolf. They're able to play their own games well. They have their clutch games when they need to clutch them. It just felt like they were playing really consistent. And I was like, well, you know what? I'll shut up because they have clearly shown a lot more than I and maybe other people expected. And then day two happens. And I do feel so bad because there is a world that all this talk about Fredoxie and Vanya doesn't happen, because Malibuca just gets on con for another 6 games, he might even win before game like 11. You know, obviously it doesn't work out this way, but if you just double his points, he's on 860 points and he wins by a country mile. Even if he gets a little bit less than that, he still wins. You know, it's one of those what ifs. We always have them a lot of the time in Fortnite. Like, what if this guy was uncontested? What if the zones, this, that, and the other? But genuinely, I feel they probably sit there, feel like they didn't get what they should have got out of this season. You know, after day one, it just feels like everything was kind of out of their control. They obviously should have been better off spawn, of course, but there was just a lot more they had to show, unfortunately.
I don't think there's a what if. I think Malibuca wins if they didn't get conned. I think it's simple as that. Like the biggest qualm that I've always had with this trio is that they always get themselves into situations in finals lobbies where they're in the bullshit. You know, like the fighting a team in Storm in like the forest area in season 1. Like they're doing some freaky stuff. W keen teams, the 150 below surge in forward zone. But I didn't even think about it when I was doing my predictions. They're like a team that's guaranteed surge every game. Like we're talking about the Thomas AGs and the Queasies on South Side. Like they're also just guaranteed surge over Lone Wolf Layer. And like you can see that when you compare to like NA as well. It's so easy to get surge from Lone Wolf Layer when you're trading with everyone near flooded fogs and everyone's uncontested around you. So I honestly should have rated them highly because I didn't actually think about how easy the surge was. They would have just won. I agree, though. I'm surprised of how bad they were on spawn. I know Walks tweeted that they had like unlucky loot spawns, but like they just got outdropped every single game. And there's various reasons for that, some of which I can't say, but I'm surprised. I am surprised.
Yeah, it's tough because you know, even when they were able to make it out of spawn, the game changes. Like you can't play your game plan, and like we mentioned, the you know, they had such an easy or at least straightforward surge plan, right? You know, I jumped into some of the numbers on the broadcast, and you know, 3% of their damage in zones 1 to 5 on day 1 was with a shotgun. Right, like they were not doing any sort of box fighting. Right, it's all just tagging from afar, you know, looking at different people in different bases. And so it's like once you know you make it out of spawn against Veno and them, you can't play that way, and you're having to fight a lot more. It's a shame because even on day 1, as much as like their surge plan obviously meant that they could make it to end games consistently, they were much better than last season. Right, last season. You know, a lot of the games last season, they were playing as a duo in end games or somebody was solo clutching, right? This season, on day 1, it's like every single game, we get to zone 11 and they're on low ground or mid ground, all 3 of them alive on the same tile, just like mashing up the lobby. And it was unfortunate we didn't get to see more of that on day 2. I agree with you, it's a big what if. With that being said, based off of the expectation, I do think a lot of people, and myself included, sort of had chilled on them. It's funny though, because my mind sort of changed before the broadcast, like before the weekend started, like where I think everybody was going one way with this team, going, I don't see anything special. And then my mind had sort of started to go the other way. I was like, I feel like now we're starting to get to the point of actually like underrating these guys a bit. You know, like,
that's
you know, the way I describe it is like, I think there was like a lot of like shiny new toy syndrome where like obviously these guys aren't boring to watch, but their situation was boring in that they're a team that's already qualified globals. They're good. We know that, like, I mean, their performances this season have just been like good. It's not been like too bad, too good. Like, you know, they have one of the best spots, so you expect them to do well. It just is like a boring situation where I think a lot of people are just looking at like, oh, Demus, Darm, and Pixx, like the young guys. Oh, what's Thomas HD gonna do with the jungle? Yeah, I mean, everyone's just like looking elsewhere. Like, whereas like it was kind of in our faces that these guys should be really good. With that being said, though, what grades are we thinking these guys get based off the expectation? What happened? I feel it's hard because if you're just looking at day 1, you know, day 1 it's got to be a A+, right? But then with what happens day 2, I guess you do have to like critique them for struggling off spawn the way they did, because it did feel like Veno, Vico, Flickzy were just miles better. And obviously not every game panned out like in Veno, Vico, Flickzy's favor, but it did feel like those guys had to jump on them. Like they made them look shaky at their own POI.
It felt like the way I perceive it is like Vico and Flickzy were better at dropping, but the actual off spawn and the way it laid out is like with that much advantage in the drops a lot of the time, the fights took so much longer and they looked so much more of a problem than I think Vico and Flickzy could have made them. You know, I think maybe that's the inexperience of landing there, and Malibuca, Watch, and Ping being able to land there the whole season makes it completely different, right? Grading wise, I think I'm probably going to go at like a B. Maybe B plus, because their performance day one was so good, and there's a world where they just win and it's just an A plus. But their performance off spawn wasn't as good as we kind of expected. And to be fair, recovering the games weren't as clean. You know, they were hard games to recover. Don't get me wrong. And Surge being as high as it was, it's really, really tough. But I just don't think they got 1 4th place on day one. The rest was top 14 or above, right? They didn't have day two. Sorry, not day one. Yeah, day two. It was nowhere near as good as you expect, so I'd go like B. I think B for me is fair for grading.
Yeah, I think that's a fair grading. I think I'd back you there with a B. I'd back you with a B.
I think you said B.
I said B.
B.
Yeah,
I
B,
thought you said D. Okay.
Yeah. No.
I think you guys are being too harsh to them. Like, I put them on like 3rd or 4th place in my predictions. So like, I think they like in terms of expectations, they were there in my predictions. But like the day one, I know they were a lot better than my predictions, and then it's the what if they weren't contested. So
Yeah,
I'm putting them on A. I think they had a great grands, and like literally, if they weren't caught, they would have won. I think I maintain that. I don't think that anyone would have caught up with them at that point because they were so consistent. Like it was,
do you look on them negatively based off of how they handled being conned, or do you still think they made the best out of that?
I mean, like I said, I think there's extraneous circumstances to why they lost the spawn. But I'd say that there was probably a lack of preparation. Maybe they just didn't expect Vico and Flickzy to have the dog in them to do that every single game. I don't think anyone did. I think calling that early is insane. Like, it's literally insane. It literally is do or die and say, fuck it, we're trying to win this FNCS. So, yeah, I think that maybe is a part of it, but if we're just judging by like how good they were this grand finals when they did get off of spawn, I'd say it's above expectations. I don't think they were even a contender to win the 7th before this grands.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair. It's just the Osborne thing, because I always think back to obviously different caliber of players they were contesting. I think of Queasy last season contesting a team that landed the whole season. Obviously, completely different caliber of players, but they were contested by. But it didn't feel like it was even they were contested. It generally just felt like they were wiping the floor with them. And then this is like they were getting out dropped. There was the picture of their game 1 drop of day 2, and that was bad. That was a bad drop. Obviously, like, but yeah, I don't know. I'm fine with putting like A- or B+ somewhere like there. I think it's fine. It's just down to what your expectations were and how much you sway like Osborne into it.
Yeah, I think different people had differences. I'm trying to remember what we said about them last weekend on the bracket app, but I do think we did say that like this was gonna be like a 3rd to 6th type of band, or maybe like top or like 5th to 2nd was like the band, and so them getting 4th is kind of just what we expected. So yeah, I guess B+, A-. I think either one is fair. Let us know in the comments. I think some people look at them more favorably. Some people look at them maybe a bit harshly because of that day 2. Boop's back in heaven again. With the bright lights.
I'm like a fucking vampire, mate. Here.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All right, on to our next team. Swizzy, Queasy, and Merstach. 5th place. This grants. Many people had them as the favorites this season, and they finished in 5th. For me personally, it just never really felt like they got out of, 2nd gear. It was just, I felt like I was being edged. I kept waiting for more, and I kept waiting for the explosion, and it just didn't come.
Oh wow! Oh wow! Yeah. Okay,
I watch Fortnite for the just watching Fortnite. I'm not doing that type of stuff.
Levin's here for the climax. Levin's just head to watch.
But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree to it. It's like it felt weird. Like I don't feel like I was watching Queasy, Swizzy, and Merstach this weekend. Like everything you expect out of Queasy, Swizzy, and Merstach is they're gonna get early surge. They're gonna play Storm until 6th. They're gonna come in dead side 6th. And then they're going to have God mats. They're going to take early height, and they're going to win the game. Not one game did they ever do that. They were rarely in Storm. They didn't get enough early surge. They were never on early height. It felt like there was zones where even like it was like a close zone. You know, there was, I think it was like zone day 2 where it was like it was so close to them. Like it's just boxcars hill. This is like perfect zone. Sit in Seaport, sit near Seaport, get enough surge, play Storm with the island, wrap around. You know, the usual stuff they do, right? They didn't do it. And it just felt like they couldn't manage the early surge. And Queasy even said it himself on Twitter. He hasn't been so lost as an IGL in forever.
Yeah.
And it just felt like I wasn't watching Queasy, Swizzy, and Merstach. It felt like I was watching another random team at Seaport. The one thing I'll say, Merstach played out of his mind, though. I will say, the solo clutches he had individually were insane. And I think, yeah, he was playing incredible, Merstach, and Swizzy also played well. I don't know. I feel like this was just, unfortunately, I feel like for Queasy, and he knows it himself, it's just didn't play to the level. And I think, yeah, it was just the whole surge trading thing that didn't really pan out the way he expected.
Yeah, it's funny you say the surge trading thing, because after Grand Finals, while I was waiting for EU NA to start in day number 2, there was like a conversation in my chat between Thomas and Queasy. And like people talking about Thomas HG, like, oh, Thomas is only trading Surge. And Thomas said, like, no one wanted to trade Surge with me this Grand Finals. Like, all this damage was for me fighting. And then Queasy was in the chat, I was like, yeah, bro, but like there's like an argument about it, like trading. It was weird. So I wonder if the expectation of the Surge towards the south side changed because maybe people were scared because of all the tweets going around and all that. Like maybe that changed the dynamic in EU or something. I don't know.
Okay, I want to address that quickly, and I'll let you continue.
Okay, sure.
I'll let you.
So I will say this: being on the broadcast gives me a great benefit. Obviously, Kinch now works with the broadcast, and you all know Kinch has the numbers of like who traded with who, right? Yeah. And he doesn't post those numbers because it would cause controversy, and Kinch doesn't want to do that. I can request those numbers because I'm on the broadcast. And I've seen the numbers, and I would not say that it was affected too much. Maybe it was less than what it was beforehand, but people were trading like a motherfucker. That's what
those teams specifically?
Continue your
Okay. Yeah. Anyways. And then the conversation, went further. And then I think Queasy was, a lot of people come to the chat to like complain or whatever. So Queasy was in the chat, and he basically said like, the zone pullbacks were just awful this Grands. Like every single zone pulled away from them on the zone pullback, and then like they couldn't really do much in those situations. How much? I mean, I don't think Queasy is the type to make excuses like that because I think he's pretty. I think he's pretty honest about stuff like that. So like I'll believe him when he says that. But yeah, if it's the most disappointing performance out of everyone because the expectation was so high. That's just it, right?
Yeah.
Everyone to win after game 1. I was like, okay, well. Queasy uncontested emphasis Grand Finals, guys. Wrap it up, And then Queasy's father was in the chat saying, "Don't curse it." Oh fuck, my bad. But I expect a lot more for them. After the game will win, I thought, okay, Queasy's gonna be a high division game, and that's gonna run it. But yeah, they were virtually non-existent in the end games from what we saw them. Like usually you see, there's Queasy on high, or like he's in half and half on a high ground layer. And then maybe they just didn't get the zone pools to let them play high down there. But then is that a question of I think Clix said this as well, like about people complaining about zones. Like, is that a question of the play style doesn't work, or is it a question of do you actually have to get a little bit more luckier to be in contention to win FNC's Grand Finals? I don't know. I don't know if it's a lack of preparation for that, or can you just genuinely do nothing as a player? I've never been in the situation, so I just can't tell.
Yeah, I would say for me, I don't know, maybe it's people my friends. I think my grading for them would be like a C+. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. They qualified for globals, which is still they needed to do that this major. Yeah. So they, they at the end of the day, like this major is a dub for them in moving them closer to being able to compete at the global championships. But they were expected to win by many people, and not just they're expected to win. They were expected to contend. If you told me that over the course of the 12 games, Swizzy, Queasy, and Merstach wouldn't actually really have an impact on like who's winning, like they're not dictating the lobby in terms of like after game 1 where they obviously won, right, and they were at the top. Like outside of that, like there was never a point in the tournament where they were the team we were going, okay, so now they're gonna take over, like Merstach and them, right? Like it was just, or not Merstach, sorry, Malibuca and them on day one, and then obviously like on day two, it was just like non-existent. We were talking about Malibuca and Veno, and then we were talking about Tjino and Vanya, right? It was like their names never even like came up significantly as like they can have an impact here, which feels very strange, feels very odd based off of how things went this season and how they were looking. So yeah, for me, not good, not bad, just C+.
I definitely would put it more towards bad. To put in perspective, they were only 31 points on missing out on globals. Now, if Queasy had missed out on globals, that is
then
like...
I'd be sitting here saying, I'd be sitting here sounding like OG Coach Charry. Is
I think there's a lot, like, to me, I don't know. You have a team who's expected to win at some clear favorite, kind of clear favorite, because Veno was contested, right? You going into it, people would say that he was the clear favorite going into it. Oh, they were the clear favorites, and it just, as you said, it did. Apart from game one, it just didn't feel like they were in contention or had a conversation, and that to me leaves a lot of questions around them and questions when it comes to about what happens next. Like, obviously, maybe it could just be a bad weekend, which is absolutely fine, or bad meta read. That happens, you know. And obviously, I still think Queasy's the best IGL EU's ever had, or probably will ever have, right? He, by far, and Swizzy and Merstach are two of the best fraggers. So they will have, another season will come where they will be insane. And this isn't like, but I am just like, the fact they were that close to me, like not qualifying to globals, even though they were in contention to win, that to me puts them low. And like, I understand C-, C, like for overall season. For me, like, I don't know, it's just, I would put them like at a D, I think, and just that would be where I put them.
Heavy speed running that block on Twitter again. I mean, I guess like the facts laid upon us is like they had the surge, right? In theory, with the surge trading, they had an uncontested draw spot, and they didn't win. You know, I guess I agree with Harry. It's like the reason why I'd probably put them C or D as well, maybe C-, anything, because they were still like top 6 or something, which is like an okay grand performance. But like the reason why the score is going to be that low is because the expectations are so high. Like they are an emphasis grands winning caliber team, and they just didn't show up this grand finals. And again, like it can be based off of zones or whatever, but that, you know, that's the end story here. Is like they just didn't succeed. So because of how good they are, I'd say C or D is fair.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like at the end of the day, I think most people went into this grands thinking they were the best team in EU, and they didn't look like the best team in EU at any point this weekend.
Yeah,
no, outside of maybe game one.
So,
So, on to the next team here. Veno, Vico, Flickzy, 6th place on the weekend. Before we get into grading them, if we're grading on just who brought the entertainment and who made this grands fun to watch, A+++++.
Yes.
Maximum A+ for just the entertainment factor. These guys made mid games in EU fun to watch. They made off-spawn more fun to watch. They made this weekend so much more entertaining. And for that, my friends, brava. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. It was, they every game, in comparison to NA, where it's just mid-game Resident Sleeper, nothing happening, like barely any fights. You get EU, it's just what are Veno, Vico, Flickzy doing? And it's just they're doing something. It's either they're sneaking on a team, they're fighting in the black markets, they're just fighting constantly fighting, or recovering their game in Storm, or rebooting. It's just like they're constantly things were happening, and it made it so fun to watch. They probably won't feel like that. They'll probably be like, well, what the fuck have we just played this season? But it was at least fun to watch as a viewer.
Yeah, that day too, when you see the gliders going into Lone Wolf Lair, there's no feeling like that, right? Like the start off the day when the high like that was insane. It's funny, like I do predictions for spawn fights in my chat, and like Vico and Veno both voted for themselves to land Lone Wolf Lair as a yes. But like Vico typed in my chat so you can see the 1 next to his name, and he DM'd me like 20 times. Boop, delete my message, because he didn't want Malibuca to know they were doing that all of a sudden. So I knew before getting him when it was happening, so I was just sitting there in anticipation waiting for it to happen. I mean, there's 2 ways you can look at it for the score here, and is it the expectation of what they performed, or the expectation of the current situation, right? Because if it was the current situation, I'd say it's an S+, because like they came and became potentially a contender at one point, at least day number 1, to win the tournament with no draw spot, right? Like everyone thought, okay, it's a dud grand. He's gonna land in Fredoxie. I had some ideas about them landing on Cringe. I thought they could get like Mythic Pump and like WK teams like that, but they legitimately cooked up a strategy. At times they even got unlucky, I would say, because there was a game where they landed on the second time they landed at the jewelry store north of Demus. Twy landed there, and they didn't land there 2 games before that. So there's just a random pinch there that ends up fucking them over. And then the game after that, the last game, they landed on the North Split, and then Twy landed there as well. And then they just died to Twy. So like maybe that could have made a difference. The games of Spawn over against Malibuca, they won those Spawn fights, but then the game sort of went to shit in other points. Is this indicative of like good Fortnite that Vico and Pixie played this grands? I'd say some of the mid-game stuff was choppy. They took some bad fights. They died in mid-games. Kind of felt like that grand finals that Peterbot lost last season, where like a lot of the mid-game fights just didn't go their way, because it can't. Like the mid-game fights in EU, one of the whole reasons why they left Crime City is like the mid-game fights are just tough, especially mid-map to get third-partied. So I'd give it like a solid B, maybe. I don't know. I think it's hard to put it because it depends on your perspective of.
It depends where you're grading from, because it's like you grade at the start of the season, but you're saying FSS winners into this is obviously awful. Changing landing spot about 500 times. Obviously, like they've said on Twitter multiple times where they've gone. At the time, we thought it's the right decision. Looking back, we're stupid, but at the time, with the information,
should just stayed at Crime.
You should have stayed at Crime. But I think, it's one of those things. I don't know. You guys are closer to Boop, you're close to Vico, and Levin, you're close to Veno. I wonder if, like, let's say, for example, it wasn't Malibuca in first place. Let's say going into day 2, it was, I don't know, Vanya or Fredoxie or whoever would they have landed on them? Or was it just the goal was day 1, stay in contention, and then day 2, contest the best team or team doing best? Or was it day 2, always go lone wolf? Do you know? Or
I don't know the answer specifically, but knowing their character, I think they saw that Malibuca was ahead by, what was it, like 100 something?
Yeah, 100 points. Yeah,
100 points. And it's a team that wants to, I mean, Vico the day before Grand DM me, he's like, Boop, trust me, we've cooked up stuff. This is going to change the way that Fortnite's going to play in the EU. We're going to be a contender to win. And I think that's what chalks down to it. I don't think they give a shit about the placement other than winning. So in their mind, this was their way to win. So whoever it was, they would have landed on them. Except for maybe Fredoxie, maybe. They would have maybe continued on. But the gap was so big that I don't think you could ever catch up to Malibuca with how consistent they are if you just didn't kill them.
No,
you have to kill them to stop them there. So
I think the problem as well with that, though, is I think there was a lot of people who felt, okay, Malibuca's at the tournament now. The team we need to worry about is Fredoxie's trio, and they land at your spot in Mast. Why are you not going back? There was a point where it went from this makes sense as your best strategy to win to now it just feels like you're just trying to beat Malibuca, which is like, what are we doing? Like, you both of you really called globals. Like, is this the fight we should be taking?
It was 20 points after game 1, right? I think after they got a 15
kill
win game 1.
After game 1.
I think after that, I think it became like an ego thing potentially. Yeah.
I don't even think it was that point. I think it's like you get to second last or last game, and it's like they're like all or nothing. It's like, why the fuck are you still going lone wolf? That's not all or nothing.
I think after
like,
game 3, game 3, they should have just like, it was like, if you're trying to win now, you got to land
on mass, you got to land flooded. You know both POIs, just land on them. Like, it is just, if you're playing to win, you have to make sure the other teams get further behind. That is just the nature of it. That is the whole playing to win, tweeting all or nothing, or all this and that, like that I didn't understand at all, to me personally. And they know the spots. They could win off Swan at all those spots.
It's literally their 2 spots.
Literally.
Flooded. I mean, I think it was a heat check as well for game 2. It's like, okay, we won this one game 1. Okay, let's do it again. If we don't, I think they got 30th that game. So after they lost that, and then they were still within contention with Malibuca, I think that's when they should have defaulted back to something else, because people would have expected them to go lone wolf layer, and then they maybe would have had another chance to make a catch-up game by landing somewhere else and getting freaky with it. So maybe they got lost in the sauce a little bit.
I think there was a miscalculation there.
Yeah,
I think it's like it's almost like it all happened too soon. Like once you did what you did, Malibuca's now not the threat. Now other teams, like, there's enough games and room for other teams to get involved, which they did in Vanya and Marius, and so it's like, and Tjino, sorry, and it's like, so you need to deal with those guys now. Like, you're almost tunnel visioned here, but it's weird because I don't know for certain from the conversations I've had with them. Like, I think like it was weird. Like they kind of made it seem like Lone Wolf was always their plan in a weird way. Like they were gonna keep sticking in no matter what, which again still is a bit like I don't know, but yeah, I guess we'll have to wait for Veno to like load up stream and start waffling. You know he's gonna do it. You know, but, like we can speculate, but he will eventually turn up his stream and then like just say everything. So
especially what happened in the Reload Eval Cup, he's got a lot to say at this point. I
mean, this trio might be done. This trio might be done.
Do you want to explain it all? Because for the people who don't know.
So there was a Reload Eval Cup, a very prestigious tournament that we all love, that we always watch. And then Vico plays with iDrop in those tournaments, and Veno plays with Flickzy. And they both qualified to the finals. And then Veno tweeted out landing, I think it was Slurpee or whatever the fuck it is. Steamy in the finals. I want to practice for Pro-Am. And then Vico ends up landing on them, because I guess they're just calling the same spot or something. And then Veno says he's dropping Vico because they killed them in that Reload tournament. Essentially, I've asked Vico about it. I haven't talked to Veno about it, but like it is real. I think essentially Veno just didn't like. I guess it was like disrespectful or something to land on Veno or something like that. I don't know exactly that specific point. But going to Vico, like it is real. Vico says he doesn't want to play with him for Star Wars season, at least for this Star Wars season, and then we'll reevaluate going to the last FNCS. It sparked up a conversation of is it just like emotions being high after grand finals, right? Like I think that's what it chalked it down to. Like they had probably a disappointing grand finals. Something like this happens. It sparks up emotion. Maybe internally during the grand finals there was some conflict as well, and like this sparks it up. It definitely feels like something just it's a bit of petty behavior, and like no one should really remember this in like 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously I know we both get like both sides, because I'm sure you hear more from Vico, I hear more from Veno.
Yeah.
It just seems very much like a bit of petulance, a bit of pride, ego. I always said to these guys that like I think you guys need to win, otherwise your vibes are gonna stink, because I think you guys will have personality clashes. And it just feels like that because again the season's been rough. They obviously didn't win, didn't go as good as they wanted to, and I think we're seeing now the result of that. And actually, as much as it's not related, that actually makes me want to grade them lower for their grand, just because it's like it gives you an insight into at least like the mental state beyond that. I know it is a bit separate, because it's it's just again big egos, whatever, but they will figure it out. I think I don't think this will be a problem.
We can stir the pot a little bit, because I saw there was a clip of Peterbot yesterday on stream, and he said Vico was the carry of the trio in this grand finals. Do you guys feel like there was any you think there was like an MVP in that trio there or something?
I enjoyed watching the trio as a whole. I felt like they were a great trio, and I thoroughly watched them. I also saw a clip in that same stream where Peterbot said at the start of this year he was going to play with him, Poyo, and Vico was going to move to NA. Peterbot said that on the stream. That was a potential option. Yeah, it was an option on the cards, because he apparently had all EU players asking him to play. So
I don't like to listen to anything Peterbot says anymore. But what I will say is, I love all three of them. I don't know what happened in every game because we just didn't see it. Like there was just a lot of games we just ended up not seeing them. I will say Vico definitely like had more of the like oh shit moments during the grands, at least from what we saw on the broadcast. So maybe Peterbot's facts there. I don't know if it's
Peterbot's just doing the bot.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
He just knows this gets into the head for like globals and stuff like that. He's trying to
rattle Veno. Yeah, he's just trying to rattle Veno fully.
And they have history, so
yeah. So I wouldn't read too much into that, but I do think they'll get things sorted as a trio.
Yeah.
With that being said, grading wise, it's tough. I think what you said, Harry, earlier was very good. Of like, if you're grading on the whole season, it's bad. If you're grading just on this grands, the expectations going in, it's because everybody thought they were going to be conned, and everybody thought that the team that they were conning them was probably better than them off spawn, but they would still do good in the games they got. It's sort of all roundabout worked out, but maybe actually a bit better because a lot of people from a lot of the predictions I saw from people, a lot of them had them teetering around like 10th, maybe even less in some cases. So they did better based off of the situation that we thought would happen. So I'm gonna say B. Yeah, I'm gonna say B. Maybe we'll chuck in the entertainment factor. Yeah, it could have been better. I'm gonna give them the grace of the entertainment factor of making the grands more fun, and I'm gonna say a B. So I'm gonna.
They polished the turd into gold. I feel like this grands. That's same. Yeah, that's.
It's not the exact same, but it's near or thereabouts.
They had nothing going for them and something. They were relevant, so like fair play.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been 3 more teams, so we got a game, and this one is about Veno, Vico, Flickzy. So, Veno, Vico, Flickzy landed at 6 different landing spots this grand finals. Can you name them all?
Okay, so you've got. Okay. So you've got the south of Outlaw Oasis, whatever that's called. The one where it's like the Dilbit factory. You got that one?
I made a map of this. So I know exactly all the spots.
Okay,
I'll
let you made a map on stream when I did this. So,
Okay. So then you have obviously Lone Wolf.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have the what's it called? The jewelry store. You have the jewelry store.
Yeah.
The one. Yep. What else do you have? They have. God, I'm trying to remember them all. Who do they key? Game on went there. Oh, South Whiffy.
Yeah.
Who else did they fight? God, did they go back Outlaw?
Got 2 more.
God, which ones am I missing?
I mentioned one of them today already.
Yeah, you probably have. Oh, Seaport. The Seaport one, the like box cars into Seaport, like.
Yeah, box cars mountain. Yeah.
Is that not the one we named today? Is there another one?
No, that's not the one I named today.
Which one did you?
I mean, one's kind of the same spot, but like not really.
Yeah.
I'm blanking. What's the last one?
I'll give you a hint. Day 1. I mean,
but I know.
It's on hit.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's Day 1. Lone Wolf.
End of Day 1.
Yeah.
End. Yeah. Slurp truck. The slurp truck spot at the top. Yeah, north. Yeah. The one north of the Mosses.
Yeah, because they had gold. I mean, it's the same spot, but like they did different things. Yeah. So.
Did you see the map that Razaru tweeted about all the strats they had?
Yes, I saw that.
I didn't see that, but on day 1, when they were doing their spot, so they told me what they were going to do before, and Veno had told me like a bunch of stuff, like where they landed. So like of the like 5 spots they landed on day 1, he told me about like 3 of them, and then there was like 2 more that he told me about that like they didn't use, and I was like, so like they had a lot of stuff cooked.
Yeah, I can read out all the ones because I've got the map up here, so I can tell you all the ones.
Nice. Yeah. Where were some of the other ones?
So they had like Seaport ones. They had like one on the boxcar, one on the hill, boxcar hill, and then there's like another Seaport one, which looks like they're landing the bank in Seaport. And then there was another one where it's like the jewelry store one, where they're like doing the jewelry store one north. And then north that is the slurp truck one. And then they have one at Flooded Tower, the Flooded Frogs Tower, landing the Flooded Frogs Tower. There's one where they're landing the football pitch, probably to key outside Outlaw Oasis to the northwest.
Yeah.
Probably to key Outlaw Oasis again. Then they had the one which was to triple chest one. I'm guessing that was the key Crime City, like pad into Crime City and key it. And then they have like north of Crime City, then the Crime City Black Market, like the fishing house, and the like 6 chests out to the west, which also would have been to key Crime City. And that's all the ones they had.
So that's why I'm like, they had a strat cooked up for Flooded. It's not like you couldn't have stopped Vanya in them. Like you could have like done something. Anyway, we'll see. Thank you, Veno, Vico, Flickzy, for making that grand entertaining. It was an absolute blast, and good job to Harry in the game. Good job done.
Thank you.
All right, we have a couple more teams left. I think we need to discuss. First, a big comeback for this team. Hris, Tayson, and Chico. They've qualified for the global championships. Us on the podcast here, when we discussed them, obviously we thought they were going to be just conning at Crime City all weekend. They obviously eventually moved to Kappa Kappa Factory, and their fortunes changed when they moved. But still, I don't think many people, even if they were landing at Kappa Kappa Factory before, and I don't know how many people would have predicted this team to qualify for globals and look as good as they did on day 2.
Tayson's back. He's back.
Bring him back.
No more 15th bullshit for Tayson anymore. You know, like
now it's 7th.
Now it's 7th. Yeah, 7th place.
Yeah, back-to-back 7th.
Oh, is it? Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no. I mean, I gotta.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. It's upgrade from 15th to 7th. We take the 7th for globals.
I mean, it's half,
that's
it's
fine.
Half. Yeah. I mean, it's different game modes, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say I gotta commend this trio for actually having like the foresight to just leave a spot mid grants. You know, not a lot of people have like the lack of ego to do that, and it worked out for them. You know, look, guys, when you don't con spots where you feel like you're losing, it works out for you a lot of the time. I made a tweet after they moved Kappa about the consistency. After that, they fully dudded a few games, so I slightly cursed them on that one, but they did make it in at the end. And it was funny because Tayson was super hyped. He's like, post the tweet, Boot, post the tweet. Like, I'm back. Like, I've never seen Tayson with that much emotion in a Twitch chat before, so that was nice to see. Yeah, I didn't have much faith in this trio before the grand finals because they felt like they were very mid. Like, they have everything to be one of the best Balkan trios, right? Like, have the Tayson, they have Hris, the up-and-comer, GOAT, Chico, the consistent one. And then they never really showed up when it came to tournaments, but in this grand finals, they were always there in the end game and relevant when they left Crime City. So definitely wonder what would have happened if they were fully uncontested. Would they have been contenders to win potentially? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's good for them. You know, I think genuinely was a worry that this season that we were going to go into the final season with a lot of Balkans needing to qualify. We were going to go back to the Balkan circus where they're all literally changing trios again, and we're back to, it's Chico back with Trulex, and we're just going through this cycle all over again. But yeah, you touched on it there with Tayson. Like, to me, I was shocked that at him iGelling did perform as well as he did. You know, I think it's been a while since we've kind of seen him iGel to this level, and it was very impressive to see, and huge props. You know, I'm excited to see how they do on globals. You know, Chico has a good kind of good record at globals. Hris finally getting to go to LAN. Going to see how he's able to do as well. I think they have a solid chance to, you know, get a nice top 10. You know, the way they played, I feel like if they're able to get something uncontested, they easily can have a nice consistent run in. I think, that is another what if of this grand. There's a lot of them of, if they were uncon the entire time, you know, as you said, Boop, it's like, could they have been contending? Who knows? Because they're 150 points behind. That's 2 good games in this format, and you're there. It's like they easily could have been. But yeah, huge props, and hopefully this is the start of them, you know, doing better in the, I know weeklies don't matter as much, but throughout the weeks, they're just nowhere near. If they don't qualify to evals, they don't do well in div cups. It's like, I want to get hyped. I want to see a lot more throughout the season. So, you know, we can get hyped for you. It's like, but no, good. That's really good effort this weekend. And yeah, hopefully this is the start of them starting to progress and start of Tayson coming back again.
Where's the power rankings for this trio near you right now, though? Like, looking at this.
I mean, I think I need to see more from this team, especially like when we talk about like what global's expectations could be. Like, I just feel like I just need to see more because you're right, Harry. They didn't feel like, if even had they been uncon like at Crime going into it, I still don't think predictions for them would have been that high, just because, you know, the performances before that weren't very inspiring. With that being said, though, it's got to be A plus. I want to say A plus, but I feel like I've given out too many A pluses.
Yeah,
so I'm
give
like,
it
I just want to say
A. Yeah,
but it's pretty deserving of an A plus when you look at what many people thought would happen. To be honest, to them, I actually like the fact that I don't think many people were expecting them at all to get a global spot. They took obviously that last global spot. It's got to be an A plus, but just because I've given out too many, I'm going to say A. So let us know what you give them in the comments. On to the next. Unfortunately, 1 spot away, like he has been many times in his career. Thomas HD, 8th place, doesn't qualify for globals. Upper Panzer repeating an 8th place now, back-to-back 8th places for him. What's the grade for these 3?
I don't know. It's just they kind of played how I expected them to play. They just didn't get enough points. It's like I expect them to get to most end games with Surge because you have Thomas HC with a drum gun and you have Panzer, who was top damage last season, so who's obviously got good Surge aim. They're gonna make a lot of end games. They did make a lot of end games. They made 11 out of 12. And they just didn't get enough points. Their end games, they got the win on the last game, which still wasn't enough. And a lot of their end games were like 13th and 11th and 8th. And it was just like, they weren't doing a lot in end game. It felt like every time the spectators went to them, it was 20 builds, 0 heals. It was like I was watching Canada last season. It's last chapter is how I felt. It's just constantly scuffed, but they just didn't have the recovery. They weren't able to get the refresh to get them back in. I definitely, Thomas, I think he was talking about, like, obviously you said about the whole trading thing. The similar thing happened on NA that, like, I was talking to someone about. Is like the top teams on NA started to make the drum gun team not get surge because you just lose every trade. Like, it's not even a favorable trade at that point. But if you're saying, Levin, that they still were trading, I'm not surprised they had enough surge.
That's what I was actually going to get to. So on day one, when I looked at the numbers, I can't remember the day 2 numbers, but on day 1, when I looked at the numbers of who was doing damage to who, like which teams are doing damage to who, if you look at the drop map, it was a circle all around them, and they weren't involved in like the most damage with another team, like at the top at all. So nobody was looking at. So when Thomas is saying like people literally just weren't looking at us, like they didn't want to trade with us, he's telling the truth. Like in terms of like
numbers
damage
don't lie.
exchange,
my goat don't lie. My goat don't lie.
People weren't looking at him because again, he's milking people with that drum gun. It's insane.
Yeah, they can barely even peek, and then they get damage taken off them. But yeah, it's a shame. It just wasn't enough. They felt like a good team. You watched them most of the weekend. They probably weren't stacked in endgames, but they made every endgame. It was just, it just wasn't enough. I'm not sat here disappointed. I'm a little bit disappointed that they didn't place as highly as I thought they would. But like, I'm going into next season like thinking, why would you ever split? You're going to be able to do well. I think you're probably still going to qualify globals. Europe, to me, as a shoot the next, but even though obviously they came 8th, but it's like there's no like combination of other players who I think is a better trio than them at this point, who's not qualify globals. I just think they stick and they will qualify globals. It's just one of those things. It's the Thomas Classic. You're 1 place off again. It's just it's a shame. It's just constant. He just keeps getting beat down, and you're like, finally, I found a trio, 8th place, no longer global. It's just like it just can't get enough. Man, it sucks.
It's the first example not first example for that, but it's like one of the first in a while. We used to get this with teams who are just really good fighters, to where like people didn't want to fight, you know. So it's like you're suffering from success. But now it's like he's so good at surge. It's just he's suffering from success. Like you got Panzer and Thomas on the team. It's like, of course I don't want to surge trade with you fuckers, man. Like, why would I want to peek you? Which is it's unfortunate.
What grade?
I think so. I'm gonna be again, and if my temperature check is off on this one, let me know. From what I saw, a lot of people were predicting these guys very highly. Like I feel like, you know, because I remember seeing people going, "Are these guys almost getting overrated now?" Because there's so many people predicting these guys very, very highly, and from that perspective, you have to say there's a slight underperformance here, but it weren't bad, which is why, you know, it feels harsh to say that. So I think for me, these guys are like a B- C+ range. Like I would have wanted to see them qual, but just missing out is it's like they weren't bad. Like I don't think they were bad. The one thing that was really interesting is like they just don't get enough kills, which is very interesting. Like on day 1, there was a point where we're looking at the leaderboard, and I think they had 15 kills, you know, and everyone else has got like high 20s, 30s. And I remember looking at it and going, they've got 15 kills. Bloody hell, that's like the lowest of anyone in the top 6. And then right after the segment, I asked Kinch, I was like, where are they in damage? Because even though they're like low on kills, I reckon they're like top 2 damage, and they were like 3rd. So it's they're doing all the damage, but just not getting enough of the kill points to really keep them in.
I think Thomas even said like he got a lot of bunch. He said he had like 10 kills that people were 1 HP and I couldn't finish them. You know, like maybe it's a bit of unluckiness there for that.
No.
I agree with your grading though. I think it's like they play fine. They definitely could have played better. My expectation, as I said, for me, they replaced in my head the Cami, Setty, Charry, where it's like they went from you know, the constant 5th to 3rd. You know, they're just in the mix. That's what I thought they were going to be, but yeah, they just weren't good enough in that regard. So I would have to agree, like a C+, probably C would be fair for me.
Yeah, I was one of the people that rated them really highly. I thought like it couldn't go wrong because they just had guaranteed surge, but I guess suffering success in this case. I'd say a C+, just because I thought they were going to do a lot better than this. I thought they were a shoe into Qual Globals, like guaranteed with this one.
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of people thought. So yeah, it's tough one. But Thomas will be back, and we do. And I know I don't want to be cringe about it, but like I'll be honest. I'll just say it does feel wrong that Thomas isn't the first Danish player to get an FNCS.
It does.
That bothers me deep down. To the point where I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of hate watching at the end of the tournament because I was a bit like, nah, man, like we can't have Thomas and not be the one.
I mean, at least it was Marius, not Fredoxie, that was the first Danish person. Come on,
And I'm not gonna. It's gonna sound like I'm a hater, but I do feel like that is like more palatable. Like that feels at least more right, you know? Because like at least Marius was like getting all the hype last year, and everyone was like, he's the next best thing in Denmark. So like it kind of feels better. All right. Our next team. Ay caramba. Setty, Hari, and Cammy placed 9th. Last week when we talked about them. If you speak.
If I speak, I'm in big trouble. No, you continue, Lever. We were talking about them last week, and yeah.
Look, before we get into the weeds of it, last week when we talked about them on the bracket, I was really high on them because I said it can't get better than this. This is it. If this doesn't go well, then this is done. Like whatever Cammy and Setty had, it's over. Like this is the peak now for them, the pinnacle. Whatever they do now is just their level. And they go and get 9th. And for the most part, they're unco in every single game. They had a couple games, I think, where maybe like the early game was a bit awkward for them. But for the most part, they had the chance to play every single game. Without going into the numbers too much, on day one of their players was involved in having like the most damage traded with another player. So it's not like Surge was an issue. They had plenty of damage, you know? So for me, I'm off the train. This is my official goodbye. I love Setty. Yeah. I love Cammy, 2 of my favorite players of all time. And I still will love them. Not together.
Yeah.
That's why I sit.
I actually, my blood is boiling thinking about this because I am like for the longest time, I've been the biggest Cammy fan. And I think there is a serious scenario where I feel like Cammy could have and maybe should have become the EU GOAT. There was a long period where he was top 3 in every single season and he was a top player. And it's such a weird situation. It just feels like, as you said, we talked about last week, they have to play such perfect Fortnite for them to get the results of old. The Fortnite's developed to where people can clutch up scuff games. Just being scuffed doesn't mean your game's over now. There's so much talent in the game that people can recover games so easily that just being stacked isn't enough. Going stacked in endgame isn't enough anymore. You're not going to get yourself enough good games from that. And if things go wrong, they don't feel like they have enough star power to recover games, or whether it's their game plan or playstyle, whatever it is, right? And you said it best. I do not want to see Cammy and Setty together again. I really, really it's because I'll just say it. I think Cammy is still a top player. I still believe he is. I thought he was last chapter. I still think he is on that level. And at the end of the day, it's fine. Like, it's my opinion. I think that Cammy showed it in when they came 3rd last season in last chapter. They're only top 5 in the past year and a half. I mean, Cammy was solo clutching games from second zone. He was MVP of that brand, in my opinion. It was literally insane to watch. I just don't know if Setty's of that level anymore. I don't know if he is. I've watched it, and I've feel whenever I watch their gameplay, and we've heard the rumors that Setty doesn't play the game enough, and that's whatever, right? And then it doesn't feel like they're on the same level anymore. I don't want to see them in the same trio, and Setty can get back to that level. Obviously, he's been a top player for a long time, and again was one of the best players in EU for a long time, but it just doesn't feel like the team is on the same level anymore. I feel like that Cammy would do better with other players. The problem is now the best options of qualified globals. So now you're in a situation where it's like either Cammy has to go play with English players, or he has to downgrade in quotation to change things up.
I know there's one North American superstar coming back to EU.
See, that is the only other scenario where Yapko is coming back from NA to EU. And I believe that Yapko, Hari, and the jury's still out for Hari. You know, I don't think he's progressed as much as people maybe expected. They picked him up and they were like, put him under their wing. You've got the firepower now. And it doesn't really feel like they've progressed as much. But that feels exciting to me. Would help with the off spawn as well, because Yapko is able to get a lot of good off landing spots. Obviously, it's NA, it's a bit different. But you're right. This is the meta. This was the meta. This shows your level as a team. And if you're not able to, quota globals, not even close to, it's not even quota globals. That's the minimum you expect from this meta. It's to win. They are still, they are now not in the conversation. As a team, they are not in the conversation. They are, I was thinking about it, they are the reverse Rezon and Vadeal. Rezon and Vadeal for the whole season will be shit in everything. They will be absolutely, when they're in duos, they will be shit in cash cups, shit in evals, everything. And then it comes to grands, and everyone's like, they can't put in conversation. Top 5, top 4, top 5, like just consistent
non-stop,
performances. Cammy, Setty, Charry is the opposite. The whole season. I ended the season like, come on, we got to change something up here. And then you watch them play, and you're like, you know what? I can see it. I can see it happening. And then Grands happens, and they're a different. I don't know who I'm watching anymore. And I just want. I want Cammy and Setty back. I want to go back 2 years, and I want them back. But yeah,
it's sad. It feels really sad that like the best days of Cammy and Setty are behind us, especially like when you look at the impact they have on the EU competitive and like how significant they are. It does feel sort of weird and strange that it seemingly is done. I think the one thing that I'd say that it's like is really hard to stomach at times is just like what like. And I know obviously everyone's better now, right? And like people are, you know, but like it can't be that bad. Like how is it that? And I don't know the ins and outs. Like I don't speak Polish. I also have seen a shift in like how people talk about Setty, in terms of just like I saw like the Polish comp report account like posted like a full hate video of him. You know, in the comments last video, right? When I asked people like, do Polish fans like Demus more now? Like, are they still riding that Setty Cammy wave? Like, there was a couple Polish people in the comments like, "Nah, man, we ride for Demus now." Like, Setty Cammy, that's old news. You know, which is a bit crazy to me to think that maybe that shift has happened. So, yeah, I think these guys need to split. I think Cammy, Hari, Yapko, and then maybe like Setty tries to snake his way onto like Comeback Blaha Mixon's team, or maybe he gets onto like Dina, Skiras, and Franek because they did quite good. Maybe he sneaks his way onto one of those teams. But I do think this has to be the end for them. I think in terms of grade, it's going to be the lowest I've given. The max I could give them is a D max.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably D minus. If I, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's the biggest gap in expectation to like, I didn't have the highest expectation, but you were right in saying if it's not this meta, it's no meta. Like if it's not the meta where all that matters is early game surge and it's a no mobility meta, it's a full brain meta, and they're not even close to winning. Now you can't even put them in contention of like a tier 1 trio. Like it just completely changes the perspective as a trio. You just have to completely change it. Yeah. Maybe next season they just go and win. And everything we just said, it doesn't matter. But I just can't see it anymore. You can't have one top 5 in 18 months in 6 FNCSs and still be considered a tier 1 trio. You can't.
It can't. No. I think they just haven't adapted to new Fortnite. I think Fortnite like this past year has shifted so much in terms of like how aggressive you have to play as teams. Like it's no surprise that all the new teams are coming up are like the young kids, the fraggy kids, all the WK trios, right? Like the game's changed, and I don't think they've changed with the game. Unfortunately, the consistency gimmick isn't there anymore because like all these top teams are so consistent as hell. Like
you need the star power. Even the teams that played good Fortnite, like on NA, right? I'm gonna use this comparison just because I know they obviously have the same coach and whatnot, and like they have similar things. But like with Eomzo, Higgs, and Clix, like Eomzo will have a game where he looks like fucking Peterbot,
Yeah, duo clutches, solo clutches.
Yeah,
like
who on Cammy's trio is like doing that? Like none of them are.
I mean,
like,
Hari's had
some big games, but it's like it's not enough. It's not at the level that pushes them up a level. At least for now.
You're right. Yeah. It's not enough. Like you are right. Like he was brought in to be the firepower, and it's just shown it's not enough. You can't just have like one player be, we're gonna rely on. You need all 3. Every trio now has all 3 players who can solo clutch, duo clutch, win, like clutch in a fight. They have all those players. Every trio does nowadays, and it doesn't feel like they do. So yeah, I would agree. I put them.
Was Cammy the only one that went 0 ping for this grants?
I think so.
I'm not sure. I have no.
One that says something about the commitment potentially. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. If that's the case, then it does.
I know Cammy went 0 ping because it was solo cash cups, not for FNCS, for solo cash cups. It went 0 ping because it's so much money. I know that for sure. I don't know about the other two. So
yeah, it's.
To end it, do you think they split? Actual, like, what do you think? Do you think they split?
I'm gonna have to, man.
I don't think they do.
I think they should. Yeah, what I think they should do, I just don't think they will. I think they'll say, we got 9th. That's globals. Like, I think they're just going to ride out the year. They'll get globals. They'll do whatever they do at globals, and then they'll split. I think that's what happened. What I want to happen is Yapko comes back. They already were trying with Yapko before with Setty and Cammy and Setty. So I think you just run that back, but with Hari instead. I think it's already also an interesting thing that Setty doesn't play the duo reloads with Cammy. I also find that interesting because you would expect, obviously, the duo who has played together for a long time to play duo taunts together, and they don't. Setty plays with Nebs, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see. But yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have one more team I want to talk about on EU before we wrap up the EU segment on this. As much as there are other teams we could grade and talk about, this is FNTage, not a charity.
Damn.
2 more games. And these are zone related because we've mentioned it in passing, but the zones were a big part of the conversation this weekend. Everybody was talking about the zones, especially because it just felt like on day one, it was only North zones on EU and NA. So, a couple questions about the zones. Zones were the talk of the weekend across EU and NA Central. How many first movings pulled to the north half of the map? Whichever one of you gets the closest number wins.
So we call it EU and NA, so 24. So out of 24.
Yes.
Out of 24. Fuck.
Whoever gets the closest number wins.
Okay. Because of the last one we did where you did it, you said first, and then I could go above or below. Do you want me to go first? So then you can go like above or below. So 24 zones. NA, there was a lot. There was far too many. I'd say on NA, there
first
was...
moving, that's a lot of north, but first moving is different, right? Like,
but it's still north of north of the middle of the map. So
I thought you meant like it pushed north relative to like.
No. It's just if it's in the north.
Oh, it's in the north half. Okay.
Which, yeah, I would say on NA there was out of 12. I would say 9 of them were in the top half, which is insane, by the way. Like the fact that that's a number is insane. But I would go 9, and then on EU, I think EU averaged out. I'm pretty sure, so I'm gonna go 7 on EU. So overall 16. I'll go 16 out of 24.
I think I agree with you with NA. I think it was literally 9 because it was all 6 were North day 1, every single one, and then they had. Like a box score zone that's 2. I think they had like 2 box score zones in bottom right, so that was like 3, and it was like a first game was north again. So I'm gonna say like I'll just say like 8 just for them different. And then for EU, it was Seaport. There was a mass metal zone last game. That's at least 3. I think it evened out a little bit, but not fully. So I was gonna say 8. So like I'm gonna say 16.
So you're both saying 60.
That's what I said. I said 60.
Oh, okay. So I'll go 17 then. Sure.
Are you sure?
No, 19. No, 17.
I'm just going to take your answer of 16. So 17? You're going to go 16?
I'll go 1 up because I think it's more than a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to accept your answer of 16 because 16 is the correct answer.
Ooh.
So now
we actually cooked.
So now it's about who got the right amount on each region.
So I said 9 and 7, and Boop, you said 8 and 8, right?
I said 8 and 8, yeah.
Harry is correct. It was 9 and 7. 9 on NA and 7 on EU. Harry might have the zones up on his monitor, man.
I do not, I swear.
All right, we'll follow up. We'll take it.
Yeah. Follow-up zone question then. Some redemption opportunities for Boop then. How many teams landing on the north half of the map won a game that was a South Pool. We didn't have many South Pools, but how many
Fuck
times?
me.
How many times did a Northern team win a Southern Pool on EU and NA?
So 4 wins for Vanya.
But how many of those were Southern?
So you guys know you know the maths. You know how many Southern pools there were. So you should be able to figure this out.
I don't think I am going to be able to pick this out. So 7 on EU.
Clix won a bunch. Peterbot won one.
I don't know who won the games on NA. That's I know like people. Okay. So I'm just going to chuck out a number. So you're saying out of the 16 games, how many of them were won by North? Oh no, not out of the 16. Out of the 8.
24.
Yes, out of the 8. Yeah, so you got the maths because you guys got the first part right.
Yeah. So out
Harry
of the 8
did.
games.
You know there was 8 South Pool games on NA and EU. How many of those 8 games did a Northern team win?
I'm gonna go with.
Is Clix a Northern or a Southern team? It's like
North.
dead middle.
He's North. He's
just
North.
That's North. Yeah, that's North.
All right. Do you want to guess first?
I'll guess first. Yeah, because you guess first. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say 3.
Okay, so I have a different number, so it's fine. I'm gonna go with 5. It's gonna be in the middle and be 4, isn't it? And we're not gonna.
I can reveal that Cooper won one of the NA games.
Yeah, it's one. He's the only one.
No, Vanya won.
Demus. Vanya won 2.
Oh, they won 2.
Wait, is this wrong from Clutch? Because I'm reading one of the team names saying they didn't land North.
Wait, who's won the team?
Well, he has Demus, who obviously did.
Yes.
Is the other one. And the last one he has is Fredoxie.
Fredoxie lands Mass Meadows, mate. Yeah.
So it is 4. So it's definitely not 5. It's definitely 4.
Well, so the answer is 4, but if he's wrong about Fredoxie, unless he's mistaken Fredoxie for another team.
Yeah. Oh, it's 3 teams. It's 3 different teams. Yeah, so it's 3 teams.
Oh, yeah, so it's 3 teams. Yeah, so it's 3 then.
Yeah, so
Vanya won 2.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So why is Fredoxie there? That's just a typo. Anyway, cool. Yeah. So yeah, the answer is 4. And Price is Right rules. Boop wins because he's closer, but he didn't go over. So Boop, you get a dub back. He gets his dub. Boop. Shout out to Boopy, man. Boop, you usually do bad in the games, you know. We don't really call it out much, but like, you do really bad usually.
Fuck you, Levin, man. Also, we're gonna talk about this on the can we get a count of how many times Levin said my podcast on the broadcast? It's like on my podcast on. And then he did mention me. He did mention me one time.
Oh,
so
did I get mentioned? I wasn't there. So.
That's after I DM'd you, though. That's after I DM'd you, though. You're like,
I have the best. I might be a part-time. I got the best takes, though, so it doesn't matter. You know, I make up for it with all the best takes.
It's funny because when we were talking, because we were gonna mention the quote that Veno had of like, I have a plan, and I was like, when it comes to that bit, I'm gonna say Boop, who I do the podcast with, just so that he gets his, because he was on me. Look, it doesn't make it. If any of you were on the broadcast with me at the time, then I would have said the podcast I do with because you're there. But if you're not there, I'm not gonna be like the podcast I do with Coach Charry, Resub, and Boop.
I was waiting for the Teddy mention instead of Harry, just for the clip, for the bite.
That would have been funny. So what? Teddy did get a mention.
Yeah, he did.
He did. Teddy got a mention.
I was like, how did Teddy get a mention before me? I was like, what the fuck?
Kelly on the NA broadcast was like, hey, Teddy on Fantasia said da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh, I didn't even get a mention on NA.
Yeah.
Shout out to Fantasia podcast, man. Shame it's going to have to end.
Yeah.
All right, the final team that people care about, at least, that we're going to discuss today. As much as there's other teams people care about, but MrSavage, Vadeal, and Rezon finishing 19th. The dream.
If MrSavage has ever had a reason to quit Fortnite again, this grand he literally, I know he tweeted, see you next season, but this is the most miserable grounds I think I've ever watched. Getting split on a spot which is already shit, then just getting randomly keyed some games, and then getting conned by another team randomly out of nowhere, and then it just looked so boring. It actually just, the only word I could use, it was boring. He looked bored. He looked like, why am I doing this? It just looked shit. And as much as Savage might be back, I don't know if Vadeal will be in EU next season. I don't know if because he definitely has a higher chance of qualifying to globals from NA when there's only 3 good teams for 2 spots in comparison to E, where there's a lot of good teams left. I mean, I don't know if Vadeal will still be there, but yeah, it was just nothing. It was a nothing grand. It was a nothing burger. It was just it's just sad. It's just so sad.
If I'm being honest, I genuinely, this might be the team I wouldn't know how to grade the most.
Yeah.
Because what is the reason they did badly? You know, like what can we blame here?
Yeah, but I mean, it's also just because like going in as well. When we found out they were conned going in, it kind of was just like, what a shame.
GG's.
Go next.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like, it didn't go how we thought it would go, but it went just as bad in a way.
I've never seen more reason calling people poor than that one grand finals. I think we've had a grand total of 3 tweets of reason calling people poor for landing on them. I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, with Hris, like, if Savage wasn't thinking about retiring, like, this would have been the reason why he would have. This would have been his 13th reason, you know, in this case. Like, my goodness, that was depressing to watch. I don't want to blame them for it specifically because, like, it's just the spot. Like, I'll blame them partially because, like, you're never gonna get Southside uncontested. I think that's the main thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you're ever gonna get Southside uncontested. I think that's a little bit overzealous to assume that because I don't think they have the aura that the Vico and the Flickzy have landing on the north side, right? Like, people aren't really afraid of them, even though they did kill the South team a bunch, or maybe they should have been. They just don't have that yet. But, like, the team's continuously landing on them. Twy landing on the south side, not 50-50. Like, what's the fuck? Like, I don't know what they guys were doing, like, landing north side and not 50-50, just to die in the tunnel every game. Like, and then they went on Twitter and said, like, oh, we have this big plan. We're not 50-50ing. I thought their plan was just a third-party mass meadows every single game because I thought Vico was on there, but they weren't there, so there's nothing third party. So, like, it didn't really make much sense to me what they were doing. It just felt like it was playing the grief. But there wasn't much hope after when they were uncontested as well. Like, it just felt like the motivation was gone at that point. So
yeah.
I have no grading for this. I don't know.
Well, it was funny because as much as it's kind of the game, like, I was gonna say, we're leaving this up one to you guys. Let us know in the comments who you know, how you would grade this. Because I struggle. I don't know. It's kind of sad. The question I have for you before we wrap up: does MrSavage stay? Does this trio stay? Is the dream still alive in your mind?
Well, the thing is, so they made the rounds, right? The clips after stream talking about it. And Rezon said he enjoys playing with Savage. He'd like to play with him again. The consensus I'm getting from the German viewers is that Vadeal doesn't look like he's enjoying playing with Savage. Because Savage, like, I think there was like a clip of Savage saying something to Vadeal, like, he shouldn't do this. And Vadeal was like, no, I should do this. You know, trust me that I can do that in that situation. So, like, I think Vadeal doesn't think that maybe there's like a mismatch there in, like, the Vadeal's expectation of Savage, or like maybe Vadeal thinks he's slightly better than Savage.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I'm speculating, right?
Yeah.
And of course, Rezon's gonna say he likes playing with Savage because, like, you're not gonna say, oh man, I fucking hate playing with Savage, because who the fuck would say that, right?
Right.
The problem is they pulled the man out of retirement. Like, he was sleeping in his bed. He was chilling.
Yeah.
They pulled him out the party. And, like, you kind of have this expectation now that you have to play with him again.
Yeah.
And maybe Savage doesn't also want to say that he doesn't want to play it because he doesn't want to let them down. Because maybe they just need a nice adult conversation saying, hey, what do you really feel? And then I feel like there's a war where Savage like, I just don't want to fucking do this anymore, guys. Like, this was awful. I'd rather have been watching this point. And then Vadeal would be like, yeah, I mean, if that's how you feel, like, I don't think we should play because, like, we have Noah who's now going to split with Shark and Chulex, and we should just play with Noah. Or if Vadeal's going to go to NA, like, I think that's a conversation that really needs to be had. I would like to see another Savage season. I think they have potential to qualify globals. Like, their end games looked good in the cups they played before this. We just didn't see enough of it because it was a last-minute thing. They didn't make a single Div 1 final yet because they had to qualify to Div 2 to Div 1. So I'd love to see it for my own personal selfishness. But I don't think the players want it. That's the general
Yeah.
I don't think they want to. I think Savage is sick of it because that was some awful grand finals. And I think Rezon and Vadeal are too nice to say that they just don't want to play with Savage again. And not that it's Savage's fault, but like I think they just want to play with a Noah really, or Vadeal just wants to go back to NA, or they want to go to NA and play with Sphinx. I think that's also a very high possibility.
Yeah, I can somewhat see that. I think from what I gathered, obviously I don't watch it fully. It's like the whole like tournament schedule and competitive schedule is a big problem. A week. Oh, and I've gone again. I'm back. But
you're back.
I think I think one of the things for Savage is like the tournament schedule was bad, right? You know, you have to play tournaments 6 days a week. You can't do anything. Can't go on holiday. Can't do whatever. Like go out, whatever, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if Savage kind of just had another retirement into another unretirement again. I could really see that. It comes to it, it's like Div Cups, and it's like, I just don't want to play Div Cups at evals and reload evals and this and that throughout the whole week. And then he gets to play and he's like, why am I not playing? And then he just plays again, right? And I could very much see that. The biggest thing I can see, though, is I think Vadeal will split. I think Vadeal will go either to NA or German Trio. I think Rezon probably wants to stick with Savage because business-wise, it is just smarter for him. At the end of the day, him playing with Savage is just better than him playing with Vadeal. And I think it's very easy to show, like, Rezon cares about competitive, but it's not his number one priority. Like, you can tell by every time he dies, it's not, oh, what could we have done better? It's, you have less money than me. It's like, that is literally his first thing he thinks of. So I think
if I had as much money as Rezon, I'd be saying the same thing every time I died.
True. But I think Savage and Rezon will stick. I think maybe Savage will quit, but come back and play with Rezon anyway. And the next season, I think Vadeal will either go to NA or he won't be in the trio, is what I'd expect. I don't think he'll be with Savage.
Look, when we had him on the pod, when we had MrSavage on the pod, I also feel like so many people don't even realize that episode exists because it was live instead of a video. So it's 2 hours into the pod, might be a bit late. But if you've never watched that, go into the live tab on the channel. We have an interview with MrSavage from literally like 30 minutes after he announced he's unretiring, where we grilled him about it. And one of the things I grilled him on was like, yo, this is a trio of people who didn't want to play with each other at some point in recent history, right? MrSavage and Vadeal split time ago. Rezon Vadeal split time ago. Rezon asked MrSavage to play before Vadeal was in the pick job. MrSavage said, nah, I don't want to do that. Like, if it doesn't go well for you guys, what's going to happen? And I think we're going to see what's going to happen now, where it's like, it's almost that awkward situation you talk about, Boop, where like nobody really wants to be the one to say it, but like we're all thinking it. I definitely see the angle of Vadeal because I didn't know that there was maybe a bit of like a clash there. MrSavage is about to go out to LA for Pro-Ab. He might stay a couple days extra in LA and decide, yeah, man, I ain't going back to grind new season, man. I'm having fun out here, man. I want to enjoy my life and stream and just focus on content. Yeah, this team feels like it's got a ticking time bomb on it. That's all I'll say. But yeah, let us know in the comments what you think of their situation moving forward. Also, if you made it this far in the video, like the video, subscribe. We've been gaining a bunch of subscribers recently, but a bunch of you watch and you don't subscribe. Like a lot of you watch like us talk for like 2 hours every week and you don't even subscribe. It don't make sense. Like
we're pretty much friends at this point, right? Like
no, literally.
Like
for a
year. Not subscribe to your friend's YouTube channel. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
apart from Levy wants to quit the podcast for all of you. Like we're all friends, you know. We're all good homies. So you know.
And now we're going to NA. Get rid of these guys.
I have one question for you, Levin. Are you ready?
Awesome. Okay, buddy. All right. That's staying in now. We're here on NA. We have the wonderful Teddy Moon in the building. We have T-Church making his return back-to-back apps. Shout out to T-Church, man, for an amazing debut last week. We got him back, and we're here to talk about NA. Of course, we just graded all of EU. Teddy, I'm going to come to you first because you always have something for us, but just give me your high-level thoughts of not just NA, but just FNCS this weekend. I have to know.
It was really special. This is, I think, both regions. This is one of the best FNCS weekends we can possibly have. From the crazy, chaotic Veno strategy to a bunch of new faces on EU. EU's way better at producing kind of new faces, new stars, new champions than NA, evidently. So, you know, big shout out to the teams who really popped off this weekend. On NA, we had the story that everyone had been hungering for, had been dying for. The battle of Clix versus Peterbot. And I cannot wait to unpack it with you boys.
Teddy, I don't think I could say any better myself, man. I mean, on EU, it was great just to watch some of those guys going at it, you know, at the top. And, you know, shout out to the winners, you know, Vanya, Vanya's trio. They played really, really well over the course of the weekend. And they weren't always in first over the course of the tournament, but they did kind of just come out and close it up right at the end, started playing really well. So shout out to them. And then, dude, I mean, I couldn't take my eyes off the screen on NA. I mean, this was genuinely hands down. I was talking about it on Twitter. Easily the most entertaining FNCS I've ever watched in my life. I can't remember the last time, even, you know, the feelings, the emotions, the roller coasters are right up there at times where I was, you know, coaching grand finals lobbies. So, I mean, I'm just super excited to talk about everything that happened over the course of the weekend with you guys.
Definitely got the heart rate going. Definitely got the heart rate going.
Oh, for sure. Well, we read out some super thanks. It's funny because, like, for me, it's been like 5-6 hours since we recorded the EU part, but for them, it's been instant. It's been a matter of seconds. But on the EU, when we read out some super thanks, Setty, we did have Robert Graff, who left a very generous super thanks. And as part of his super thanks, he said, I genuinely love Teddy's analysis, but we might need to limit him to 2 dad jokes per episode. No offense, Teddy, is what you said. Teddy, I need a response from you, because you've been, like, on one hand, you've been letting them off. Like, the dad jokes and the puns have been flying.
Yeah.
Do we need to restrict you a bit?
Well, first, on behalf of Fantasia, thank you for the generous donation. And thank you for the thoughtful note. That was I read through it, very thoughtful note. I'm glad I read through it. With respect to the dad jokes, it's a volume game, right? I may toss out even more. They're not slowing down. When they come, when they get cooked up in the mind, they come right out into the microphone, and you just can't stop that. You can't. And you know, be honest. Everyone loves the dad jokes. Let's get the opinions as well in the comments. Do we need to limit Teddy, or should we keep letting Teddy cook? There was one comment that I do want to address.
Okay. Who we shouting out?
Yeah, shout out to the Spotify comments.
There you go.
Shout out to all the Spotify.
It's not just me who reads the Spotify comments now. We have one more person on the pod who reads them. It's Teddy.
Yeah. Hubris is deadly pride. I got you, Teddy. I hearted that. I read it. Wow. I literally said, when I made the Sophocles reference, Creon shouldn't get hubris. I knew one person was going to comment supporting it. And actually, I think someone commented on YouTube as well. So, you know, I was right. I was right about a lot of the things I said on that podcast. So was T-Church. And we're going to highlight some of those things. But that's one of the things that I'm right about that I'm most proud of. 100% for sure.
There you go. Pat on the back for Teddy there for the analogy that 99.9% of us still don't understand. Now, we have to begin by congratulating our champions. We did this same on EU. Here on NA, Peterbot, Cold, Ritual, a massive congratulations. I mean, you know, we can talk about the legendary run Peterbot's been on. We can talk about how amazing of a player Cold has been and is. We can talk about the redemption for Ritual, and we will talk about all those things. But I want to start off with a bit of a game. We're going to start off just to ease our way into the conversation. We got some NA-specific games here today.
I'm ready.
Peterbot dealt 15,600 damage in this grand final. A lot. Number 1 in the tournament. Can you guys rank his top 5 highest damage FNCS finals? Which of his FNCS top finals 5 performances has he had the most damage in? We're trying to get the right order here.
Do you want to go from 5?
Are we going to do it as a team?
Well, you already... Well, yeah. Well, just whatever order you guys want to go with. You can try to go from 5 to 1, 1 to 5, whichever one you think's the most, whichever one makes more sense for you.
What do you think? Do you think number 1 is the Chapter 5 Season 2 when he had the medallion?
I was thinking either that or like globals, just because of the solo clutches that he pulled off, like at globals. So I was thinking like it was one of those two. But yeah, with the Grim Gate medallion, I mean, and that gatekeeper, I mean, you're just yoinking walls with that shotgun, like, and he's the only person in the lobby with mobility. I would say probably those have to be 1 and 2.
And because I think the reason why I put globals a little bit lower is they did have 2 0 elimination games, or 2 games where they died really early.
Yeah, and they did. Yeah, Grim Gate chapter, they absolutely dominated.
And then what about the season? What about the season when the next season when he won chapter 5 season 3, when he had that mythic AR?
Okay. So you have 4 that you guys have named so far, or at least, or you've named 3, but
what do you think are the other
only wins, right? Or all finals?
No, just all finals.
He did really well when he came second. His 2 seconds, he's absolutely cooked too. Yeah. He's got 5 wins and 2 seconds, and I mean, this is tough. I think
I'll let you guys know.
Number 1, Grim. I think, can we lock that in?
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that one. Yeah, I agree.
So number 1, Grim.
Season.
Number 2, do you want to do globals or the season after Grim when he beat
I think Cactus season. I think Cactus season number 2, then globals.
Do you want to do, or do you want to do this past season because of all the surge trading? Do you think there's like more overall damage dealt here?
Damn, that's a good question.
Well, I told you how much is here. This was 15,600. That doesn't help you much, but just try and gauge.
Do you think this is 3rd? Globals is 4th?
I think
globals could be the most.
The runs he was, but the run he was on in chapter 5, it was just like nobody was touching him. So it's hard for me to really like want to put a season from this chapter in there, just because of how absolutely dominant he was in chapter 5.
Yeah.
So I think I would still go with
Globals 3.
I would go with Cactus season 3, then Globals 4.
And then which one's 2? The one we just had?
We had Grim Gate. Oh, okay. I guess we went Grim Gate,
Cactus Globals.
Yes.
This most recent season, and then we're picking between 2nd last season, 2nd major 1 of last year, and then his chapter 3 win. And which one of those do you think, like, he definitely, like, this past major 1, he led in damage. He led all those tournaments in damage. So it's just a matter of when did he beat himself?
Right.
I'll give you a hint. It's within the past year.
So let's go major 1 of this past year, because he had that insane solo clutch.
Yeah.
But dude, he did so well in major 1 last year. He was hitting crazy snipes. He had crazy clutches.
There's so many factors too. Like thinking through this in real time is kind of crazy, because it's like there were snipers back in chapter 5, and it's like that was so long ago you can easily forget about that, and that would greatly bolster someone's damage numbers, you know.
Okay,
look. I'm gonna lock this in. That this is, so you guys have Grim number 1, Cactus season number 2, Globals number 3, this season just now, chapter 6 season 2 number 4, and then major 1 chapter 6 season 1 as number 5.
Let's lock
I
it in.
can reveal that you guys have all 5 seasons correct.
Okay.
Fist bump right there.
All 5 of the seasons you got correct. The ordering of those seasons is different. So that's what we're going to address here. The season where Peterbot did the most damage in the Grands was last season, chapter 6, season 1. He did 20,770. He did almost 11,000 in 1 day, which is the most in a single day.
I think that's above my career Fortnite damage stats.
Yeah, so it was last season was number 1. Chapter 5, season 2, Grim season is number 2 with 18,900 damage. Globals is then 3rd with 18,400 damage. 18,400 damage on Globals is insane. Like, the fact that there's only like a 500 damage difference between Globals and Grim season, when we all think of Grim season as this like monstrous season where he had the biggest advantage of all time, and he had 2 dud games at Globals, and there's a 500 damage difference. This guy is scary as hell. And then this season that just passed is number 4, and then Cactus season, chapter 5, season 3 is number 5. So yeah, shout out to Peterbot. He does a lot of damage. And he had to do a lot of damage this weekend for their team to get the dub. Let's start off with them. Peterbot, Cold, Ritual. How would we grade their performance this weekend? Of course, they came in as the favorites. They got the job done, but not as smoothly and cleanly as many people would have thought they would do it. My good friend T-Church, kind of foresaw this potentially happening last weekend on the pods. So I'll come to you first.
I'm gonna give them like a B plus A minus, right? There was, they had a couple of games where they seemed to really struggle. It looked like there was a little bit of just kind of like, I don't know how to put it. You just saw a couple of games where it's like they go for some plays trying to get surge and one of them ends up dying. You know what I'm saying? So cohesion, there's something missing, right? Because what we're used to seeing out of Peterbot, I really think like if we want to go there, like you kind of have to say that Peterbot didn't play his best this past week, and at least in my opinion. I know he's top of the charts in damage, but he's dying in situations we're not really used to seeing him die in. I'm not sure exactly what caused that, but yeah, I mean, just for whatever reason, they just weren't as dominant as you would have expected them to be.
What do you think, T-Church, in terms of the best explanations? Is the best explanations is trios is just harder to assert your will in, so it's just he's not going to have the insane historical pop-offs that he had in duos? Is it teams are just playing better? Like the region got better, they stopped trading meme coins, they buckled down, LAN was on the line, and the region got better, and they just did not want to get completely run over by Peterbot again? Or is it like
it was
something about this meta, or the something about this meta, or the way the lobby was kind of playing?
Well, I mean, I think it's the first thing you said. I think the change in game mode from duos to trios is definitely a good point, right? I mean, you're adding in an additional person to the team, and Peterbot's play style is very much like, F it, I'm going to do it myself. You know what I'm saying? And you guys can figure it out. Just follow me, right? And, I don't, this is what I was saying last week on the pod is like, I don't see that place when everybody's trying their absolute best. Money's on the line, land qual's on the line, like your pride and your ego's on the line. Like that doesn't always get it done. And that super aggressive play style, you might be able to survive on 1 HP, when there's 2 people being super aggressive, super aggro like that. But you add that third person in there and it can, start to become a struggle. So I definitely think that changing game modes makes it harder for one individual player to be able to just absolutely dominate, right? Like what we're used to seeing. But like, let's not pretend that this wasn't like, that this was closer than what it was. This was a 2-horse race in NA. Third place was 150, 200 points behind them.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are we really like? Clix, Eomzo, and Higgs played out of their minds, really. But also Peterbot, Ritual, and Cold didn't play up to their best, right?
Yeah, I like B+. I have a question for Levin, though.
Okay, what's up?
So, Levin, you're like kind of the greatest merchant for moments in Fortnite, right?
Okay.
Game 12 at Seaport City. We see both teams kind of hovering around each other the entire game. What did you think of? What did you think of that approach to the game for both teams? I think after the tournament, Peterbot was like, "Yeah, we knew we just had to beat them, so we kind of shadowed them and hovered around and tried to intimidate." Like, how did you think? Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual approached that?
It was interesting. It was quite indicative, I think, of how a lot of their tournament went, in that it didn't feel like the Peterbot performances of some of last year, where it was just about him just blowing the lobby out of the water. It was like, oh crap, like these guys are here, I need to beat them. The thing about it for me that was like weird is obviously it's just like I feel like we're so used to seeing Peterbot wrap tournaments up in like a very fantastic way. Like it's like the typical like wins the last game, and so now it looks on the leaderboard like it was 100-point gap, so it doesn't even look close. They just complete comfort, ease, whatever. It was a bit of stress. It was a bit of panic stations, and they almost lost it. I mean, for a moment they had lost it, right? When they all died to Storm, Clix and them killed them, and it's like. You've just lost it there until they lose it because they don't have the right heals to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
I think when it comes to Peterbot, I don't think it's obviously much harder for them to. It's much harder for him as an individual to have the kind of impact he had in duos because you got the extra person there, but I still think he can have similar levels of impact. You look at how he played last season, and it was. That's the season where he's done the most damage. That was probably the most inevitable. I think the thing for me that definitely felt different was like he didn't feel as inevitable. There's like always been this inevitable feeling about Peterbot where it's like you just can't even touch him. You can't phase him at all. And it's why I actually think, as much as they did win, right? And so it's like it seems the expectation was them to win, and they did win. And so sometimes it's like, so how can you rate them anything lower than like an A or whatever? I think I'd give them an A-. Maybe a B. The one thing I will say is that it just wasn't as clean as back in the day, or even as like it was at times before. Like there was a lot of end games where they are just a duo, right? Whereas it is just Peterbot solo clutching. The first day there was a lot of Cold and Ritual having to get the job done, right? Because Peterbot was dead. And day 2 there was a lot more of him clutching, like the almost 1v3 against Clix, Higgs, and Eomzo, right, where he takes down Higgs, and then Eomzo hits a crazy shot to take him out. There were just moments there that like, he as good as he was, there wasn't much you could do there. I still think it was fantastic. I feel like if I was grading him as an individual, it'd still be A, not A+, because I've just seen him play much better. But he still played like the best player in the world for a lot of that grand. And so if I'm being honest, like I'm not incredibly, in terms of thinking from the future, like after watching how they performed, thinking for the future, am I worried about them going into globals, for example? Do I now think less of them going into globals? No, because on the other side, I thought at times Cold finally played like Cold, right? I felt like last season he sort of scathed by a bit, not performing to the level we expect Cold to perform at. And this season, especially day 1, my oh my.
2.03 damage ratio. I think he had
Crazy.
the highest damage ratio in the grand finals. So
crazy.
You talk about going up against the best players in the world, and every player that you kill, every 200 damage you get, you're only taking 100 back. Yeah, man, I'll take that
every day of the week.
And when they did that push at the end of day 1,
yes,
he took out Higgs so confidently.
Mm-hmm.
I know,
like he was nothing.
yeah. It's just like Cold has like such a casual way in which he plays the game sometimes, where it's just like, oh boom, I'm in your box, you're dead. Oh boom, I'm in your box, you're dead. It's insane. I'm really also happy for Ritual.
You have to be, man. You have to be.
I want to point out that we're talking about how good all of these players played individually. But like I was saying, I think part of the issue, like I was saying last week, I think part of the issue for this trio going forward is how do we figure out how to be synergistic as a team?
Yeah,
right?
Because they weren't that.
Exactly. They all play great from an individual standpoint, but you still almost lost grands. And this team shouldn't even be a close race.
For sure. The synergy of their team, to me, is more in their reputation, right? Which is they get all the mythics, no one will contest them, and basically people's map awareness has to go like to infinity when they're close to Peterbot. So in that respect, they have synergy. But it did seem a little bit weird. It did seem like, especially in endgame, something was missing. How many wins did they have? 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1.
Did they have 2? Maybe.
I got it pulled up right in front of me. They had 1.
Yeah, they only had 1 across the 12 games.
Yeah, that is weird. That's a good point.
Look, I feel like last season I was too harsh on them. Like when I go back and watch what I said about them last season when they didn't win, I was too harsh on them. This season they've won, and I still feel like maybe I'm being too harsh. But I do think as much as like there was something left to be desired, like it just wasn't as clean. Like it wasn't bad. Like you look at it before, of course, one day won, so it can't be bad, right? But it just wasn't the domination of like previous tournaments. And as much as I think it's easy to be like they weren't as good, I actually think it's more so the other team was amazing in Eomzo, Clix, and Higgs.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I felt this way about Aegis, Acorn, and Poyo, where it was like, I felt they had to rise to an insane level to beat Peterbot. And I think we saw that happen again, where Clix's trio rose to an insane level.
For sure.
And in so many different universes, you replay it, and they probably do just win. And it's crazy to me because you have a team here who last season, and since, you know, they sort of formed, right? The narrative was like, is this the Peterbot stopper, right? Like, you know, and I remember at first I was like, people are trying to force this a bit too much, man. I know we want to see Clix win and we want to see Clix challenge Peterbot especially, but like, let's not force this. And they've just improved, and they've just improved, and they've improved, and they've improved. Last Grands, I think they ended with like 60 kills or something. This weekend, they had like 90. They like had a different, they've improved by like 30 kills in the Grands, which is 90 is the type of range you need to be in if you want to have any chance of competing with Pete, right? So that trio, for me, they didn't get the job done, but Clix improved on his best placement. Eomzo got a second place. Higgs, I know he'll feel terrible about how that last game played out, but I don't think he should. I thought as a support player, he was excellent. The contrast between the two teams is Peterbot's trio has so much individual brilliance, and they relied on that to get them out of tough situations. Eomzo's trio was rarely in tough situations. The synergy was
Phenomenal.
different level. No team on earth right now is as on point as these guys when it comes to their synergy. And so as much as I think a lot of the expectation was that these guys would be one of the possible teams to contend against Pete, and they did that. Even though they didn't succeed, the performance was an absolute A+ across the 12 games. Like they, you know, of course they could have played better because they didn't win, but they almost couldn't have played better, right? What did you guys think of that trio?
If you don't mind if I go first, man, I'm like about to explode because like this performance was genuinely, absolutely one of the best ever. I don't care if they did. I don't care if they won, didn't win. There was like a very specific point in the tournament where I go back on Clix's stream and I remember watching it. It was right before they bat play in that, like in the 12th game, where they're sitting there and like discussing the play like as a team, and it's an open-ended conversation in their communication, which is like the pinnacle of what I could describe as, you know, synergistic teamwork, right? And it's like, if we're going to do something, we're all going to do it together, and we're committed to doing this thing with the same goal in mind. I know that bat play actually wound up, you know, turning like really bad for them, but that is like the prime example of like what made them so great in this Grands. And then individually, they all performed amazing. I think they performed about as good as they could. You know, you look at some of the solo clutches out of the different players. The one that really sticks out in my mind is like 9th, 10th game, like Peterbot's trio goes down. Eomzo's the last one alive. It looks like an impossible situation. And then here he goes on low ground, just one pumping everyone. Like you can see the excitement. I'm just like, oh, I could take me back to that moment because it was, you know, I know that probably meant so much to those guys in that moment to just be able to perform that way. But it's that just, it was an amazing performance. I can't say much else.
That Eomzo game 10 clutch in particular is one of the best.
That's his moment for sure. That's his
clutches of all time.
Yeah,
sure.
Given the stakes.
Yeah,
100%. Given how much it was needed, literally, like that. If he didn't make that clutch, right, and it's definitely his kind of like pinnacle career moment. I kind of like think back across his career. I think when he was with Rise, it was more consistency versus like these like big moments that punctuated tournaments. But if he doesn't do that clutch, like I don't think the game 11 and 12 are really that exciting at all. To be honest, I think Peterbot would have gotten up to what a 70-80 point lead. I think he got it. It would have been 70. I think he got it down to like something like 30 or 40. I'm sure the comments will correct me, but yeah, amazing.
And before we move off the top two teams, man, let's talk about the pressure that I'm sure all 6 of these guys were feeling in that game 12. Because it's like that game 10 is like the epitome of. I'm sure you're Peterbot, you die, you see Eomzo still alive, you think, oh, he's going to go down, and we still got a solid lead. And it's like, no. Here they come. They're coming. And so it's just one of those things of like, anytime it's really entertaining for us as the fans, I know those players have to be going through a crazy amount of stress. And I think you saw a lot of that in game 12. But like, shout out to these guys for giving us just such an amazing and entertaining grand finals, man.
And what did you think? What did you guys think of the game 12? The way I asked about the way Peter's team played it, about the way Clix's team played. I know Higgs had that miss, but he did clutch the res in the first place for Eomzo, so that it wouldn't have been in the situation had he not clutched in the first place. But what do you guys think of the way they approached that game?
I mean, the game was interesting because you sort of had like Pete's trio, like Eomzo's trio was around like the Crime City area, right? And like Pete's trio comes in and like they're posturing like they're about to fight. And I remember in that moment thinking like, oh, this is it. Like we're about to decide right now and just mid game. Like they're about to just fight. We're about to figure it out. And in that moment, I was like, I want to go back and watch that moment from Clix's point of view in terms of the comms and what the vibes are. Because just watching the broadcast, it just felt like Pete had the upper hand there. Just like they're the ones hunting them, right? And I know the casters kept using the whole thing of hunted becoming the hunters, right? Because there was the back and forth of like, at points in that game, it was Clix's team that was like almost forcing them to run back.
So much like cat and mouse.
It was just really non-stop, the back and forth between the two teams of like, you're going, I'm going, no, we're coming after you, you guys come after us. Like it was so unique. I think that's one thing, like it was so unique to where like I can't recall a moment like that in Fortnite history where like the flow of the game was so focused on the two teams and they are just interacting all throughout the game, Like there's not many examples of that happening in Fortnite history.
100%.
And there was something very, very, very
it felt like a boxing match.
For real.
It felt like a boxing match between two heavyweights just out there slugging it out, and we're going to see
sizing each other up
first.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, usually these tournaments, it's either like, an end game, like the Malibuca versus Tayson one, right? Where it's just, okay, who can out solo clutch the other one, or the Queasy Thomas versus Malibuca Merstach, or it's like the Cami Setty, Queasy Veno, first place lands on second, or second place in that case lands on first place. But usually, to your point, Levin, it's not like they cat and mouse the whole game 12, and then there's just this random climax that's not. It's not an end game, and it's not the
end game. Yeah,
but it's just
was weird.
It was just so it was so fresh and interesting for sure that it's just it was a surprise. Oh my god, it's going down right now, and then it did seem like Clix was going to win, and then they both died to Storm. And
so tough.
Yeah. Wow.
So tough. Look, on like outside of just that amazing game 12, like when you look at them, both those teams throughout the whole, the whole weekend, I've already highlighted this, but just the contrast and just like the cleanness of like Clix, Eomzo, and Higgs, the low ground domination, like they played it to perfection. And there were a couple other teams in the lobby that I think played very, very well that we're getting to. A Minish trio in particular, I thought was excellent on low ground. It was one of the few teams that actually probably gave them problems there in terms of the space they were trying to claim. But Clix, Eomzo, and Higgs, props to BloodX because, I've seen BloodX work and I know he is all about like efficiency and maximizing the game plan for efficiency. And he did that with these guys perfectly. Like everything about what they did was so clean, so efficient. And I always find NA endgames so strange to watch, especially in comparison to EU endgames and Grands sometimes, because, in EU, there's always like a couple of different teams who are maybe missing from the endgame because, there's just so many good teams, the lack of consistency there, whatever. Whereas with NA, when it's just always the same teams in endgame, you almost like, blink and miss something, right? Like a team just you might just never see a team, but they were there and they like came fourth or third, you know. And with these guys, it's like whenever they weren't there, or whenever we weren't watching them, I knew they were there. You know, like I knew they were there. And they
I was going to zoom out and they'd be right there. Yeah.
They'd switch to the drone shot and it'd be panning and you would just see them running dead side low ground every single time. But then you'd contrast that to like Pete. And a lot of the time they were like playing for height and it was quite messy. And like, you know, it's funny because obviously naturally the observers were just only watching Pete in those moments. And it's like Pete just harassing whoever's on high ground, like actually just being the biggest nuisance.
Yeah, 8 builds, and he's like pushing
it's
height.
Just, and it must be so annoying because it's like you think in those moments he's just like it's just nothing like you can handle, but you can't because he's gonna beam the hell out of you and then build 2 ramps up and just start mantling, and you just have nothing you can do about it. And I thought that was cool because there were so many moments in mid games, obviously on the end of day 1 and like throughout day 2, where they were interacting throughout the game, but the end games they weren't anywhere near each other. You know, it's like Pete's trio was doing their thing up on height, Eomzo's trio they're doing their thing on low ground, and then they collide in the final moments at times, and that as well was just it was so fun, man. That's what it was just fun as hell, man.
You know what's an underrated Peterbot attribute that I was thinking this weekend is his gamesmanship, right? He like plays to win. That strategic push of Clix's team in the last game of day 1 that's designed to, you know, get in their head overnight. We can take the lead from you anytime. We can push you anytime. 100%. I mean, T-Shirt, you're the coach. Like 100% they were thinking Saturday night, and Sunday morning, we need a plan if Peterbot is going to push us off spawn more aggressively. So like that definitely was in their head. And then he did the tweet before game 12 of Clix meditating at globals.
Well, I'll tell you, my friends and I were having a conversation about that, about the Peterbot push. We're like, do you really want to do that on the last day, or do you want to do it as a surprise on the first day or on the second day, right? Do you want to do it as a surprise on the second day? Because there was a discussion there of like, you know, now they could plan for that. But, you know, as it turns out, Peterbot kind of took the lead there and, you know, the rest is history. So, I mean,
and that was probably the difference in the tournament. Like if you really look at it like that,
you had that one, and then you had a couple of decisive calls on day 2 that pretty much wrapped it up. So that was definitely a turning point in the tournament. Absolutely.
No, honestly, it was both teams. Props to both teams. Like in terms of, you know, we did this on EU in terms of like Vico, Veno, Flickzy. In terms of just entertainment factor rating, both teams A+++++++. You know, max top marks. I do think when you're just looking for the sake of the video in terms of just the grading, I do think because it wasn't as clean and as dominant as we're used to seeing from Pete, you probably give them a tiny sort of downgrade on that one. Yeah,
I like B+.
I like A-, but B+ is fair as well. I think.
I was going to give Clix's team an A-, but you guys wanted to give them an A or an A+.
I think they get an A+, to be honest. Maybe I'd say A because they just didn't quite get it done. But like, nah, man, both teams are just.
I would say
I just can't.
I would say the only thing holding me back from giving Clix, Eomzo, Higgs that A+, it really is just you know, a couple of the smaller mistakes that were made on day 2. You know, you could tell that the nerves were catching up to them a little bit. You know, I mean, and again, you got to remember, like, you know, Clix is chasing that win, right? So it means a little bit more to him. So there's a little bit more shake at the end there, right? But I think with a little bit more time, a little bit more gelling, like we could see these guys win, you know, next season or even come global. So,
hey, look, I'd like to talk amazingly about Eomzo. I always talk amazingly about Eomzo because I've been a massive fan of Eomzo for a long time now. I never felt he got the credit for how good he was. He was unbelievable in that grand. Individually, played at a level that I just think is insane.
For sure. Just like Agers.
Clutch. Yeah. Yes, he was like the Agers this season. Yeah, exactly. He was the Agers. He rose to a level that was like, you know, unbelievable levels of flow state. But I also want to big up Clix because it's crazy to me how Clix is who he is being the streamer, the guy who has been doing it on stream for years now. And he's had to go through so much, you know, on and off. And somehow he's hit like this new prime. Like, how is he as good as he's ever been 7 years into this? It doesn't make sense. It really, like, when you sit there to think, it doesn't make sense. The guy's not had a break. You can look at all the other people, right? The only other person who hasn't had a break is like Aussie Antics, right? Because Aussie's just watching, right? But in terms of players, like, there's been people who have gone and come and da-da-da-da-da-da.
And retired for 3 weeks. And come
retired
back,
for 3 weeks and come back. Right. Clix has just been on it. And in a season where, you know, he probably had his most successful season just commercially in terms of just having the, you know, the skin and the in-person event in London and just all of that surrounded that, to still be as locked in and to show up and perform like that in Grands, man.
You guys shouted it out when you did the icon bundle analysis on the pod a few weeks ago, Levin. But we literally have seen Clix transform into, he's like a superstar athlete. Like, he's like a LeBron, where he's got all these business interests. He's still peak performance. He's, you know, and like the amount of transformation from, you know, whatever that 13, 14-year-old kid, it's like, it's really profound and it's inspiring. And you know, I'm glad Epic finally recognized that, right? That this is like a super inspiring and powerful story of a person who from Fortnite, you know, evolved into an extremely successful and effective person. And
look,
yeah.
Oh no, and you what? Sorry.
And you hope there's some other people like that from the, you know, Clix era, like, you know, Mongrel and stuff, that maybe you'd maybe want to ask, like, you know, can we see that kind of dedication to the game, like the macro game too, like the business, the Fortnite, the creator, the streamer, from him, right? Like,
yeah. Oh man, I mean, it's funny because they obviously released this new version of his icon outfit that was like FNCS themed going into Pro-Am. But I know Fortnite wished he won, because imagine he wins and then the next day they drop the like special champion outfit version. It would have been insane. Unfortunately for them, yeah, it did not happen. But it still felt deserved for sure. Look, speaking of Clix, I got a little game for us to wrap up our conversation about those two amazing teams that made Grands what it was. 100% worthy of the half an hour we have spent talking about them. So Clix, or Clix's teams, have been known, or have come to grow into being known for consistency now, right? It feels weird to say that, but this, you know, he is now the consistency merchant. Can you guys
they
name...
team up and they Clix.
Okay. Can you guys name...
That's one.
That's one. Can you guys name his top 5 best average placements FNCS finals? So which 5 FNCSs has Clix had the highest placement in his career? This is perfect for Teddy, I feel like, because Teddy is the historical FNCS person. But a hint I'll give you is that you don't have to look too far for some of these results, but you might have to look a bit far for some of them as well.
All right. So T-Church, here's the Clix top 10s, basically. All right. Season X, I think he came 6th. Chapter 2, Season 5, he came 5th. Chapter 3, Season 3, he came 4th. And then Chapter 5, Season 1, he came 4th with Epic. And then Chapter 5, Season 3, he came 4th with Veno. And then Major 1 of this past year, he came 3rd. And then he came 2nd here. So those are the ones to pick from. I'm just saying that's the grocery bag. That's the grocery list that we're picking from.
Teddy's such a savant. I'm just like looking at my list of answers and I'm like, surely he doesn't say every single one. But you're right. It makes sense. You're going to pick from his best placements when you're looking for highest average placement in those 12-game finals. So which ones are you going to pick? Which 5?
I don't think it's Chapter 2, Season 5, T-Church, because he won 3 games in that tournament and still placed 5th. So I think basically he had a ton of dud games and a ton of dud games with Booga and Bizzle. that were then kind of, you know, they had these big 3 wins. So then we're really looking at, you said top 3, Levin?
Top 5.
Top 5. So I think definitely the last 2 FNCSs, the third and the second, definitely the 2 fourths from last year, and then probably the one with Dukes. Like I think it's honestly fifth. Can I cook you here, T-Church? Do you mind?
Go ahead, man.
No,
Go
he's
ahead.
going in overdrive. He's in flow state right now. Go on.
Fifth Dukes.
Okay.
5th Dukes. Let's do 4th Veno season, chapter 5, season 3. 3rd Epic Whale season. Okay. Oh, actually, can we flip Epic Whale and Veno, and then first this past season, second place is second place, and then second is the chapter 6 season 1. Do you want me to recap?
I know. I have it.
Did I get it?
I have it.
I missed one.
Do not have it.
Fuck.
Unfortunately, you are missing 2.
Really?
You're missing 2. Yes, 2 of the ones you picked are incorrect. I'll let you know what's not correct. So, your Epic Well and your Dukes 4th places are not correct, or
Not
4th
on
and
there.
5th, I think it was. Yeah, Dukes and Epic are not on there, but Veno and the last 2 seasons are on there.
So do we go season X T-Church just because it was 6 games and it's like the average placement has to be high?
Dude, you don't. I mean, you're the history buff here, man.
Well, what else could
I
it
was
be?
still casual back in season X, man.
What else could it be? I think, can we put season X? Yes or no,
Okay.
11?
No,
Season X is correct. Season X would get you a point here.
So then I think we have to go chapter 2, season 5. What else is there?
Chapter 2, season 5 is the one. Okay, so let us know in the comments how you did. The order is as follows. Chapter 6, season 1. So not this season, but last season is their highest average placement. They had an average placement of 5.67 last season. This season is number 2, an average placement of 6.92. Unbelievable. Then season X is actually 3rd, playing with Crims and Spades way back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9.17. Yeah, man, Crimson Spade. I've not seen those names in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was actually chapter 2, season 5 with Booga and Bizzle. He had an average placement of 9.58. And then to wrap it up, chapter 5, season 3 with Veno, 10.42 average placement.
Interesting.
So, there you go. Let us know if any of the Clix has got that one in the comments.
I guess Veno was cooking on the eliminations in that one.
He must have been. Well, I mean, I'm sure it would have been better day 1. The average placement.
Yeah.
Pardon me, but day 2 probably starts to look a bit rough.
Yeah, because they were getting griefed too.
Yeah, it wasn't a great situation. And I mean, I don't want to shed too much light on it, but there was a griefing situation in this Grands as well. That was a bit weird.
That team that landed on the end.
Just, I don't know what that was, but I hope Epic deal with that promptly.
Actually, can I give a take? Levin, you'll like this because you're a English football guy, right? I'm an American football guy. You're so we'll, out of respect to the Fantasia podcast, we'll give football to England.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Do you think that it would be interesting? I guess Epic would never do this. If you become bottom 3 or bottom 3 in FNCS or bottom 2 in FNCS, you get relegated where you have to qualify for one FNCS before you can get into another one. Does that make sense?
Wait. So if you come bottom 3, you can't play in the next FNCS final.
You have to. It's like Monopoly, get out of jail, where you have to roll doubles to get out of jail.
Yeah.
Right? You have to qualify for another FNCS, and you have to qualify for another FNCS subsequently, and then your qualification
God.
lock is off.
They would never do that. But
you're just punishing people for sometimes being unlucky.
But doesn't that make the bottom 3 so much more exciting?
Unlucky, but...
it does make the bottom 3 very much more exciting. So one idea that I've thought about before, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm pretty sure they thought about before. So hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying this.
Ooh. This is why you listen to the Fantasia podcast, folks, by the way. this
Yeah, you
insight
gotta
right
get
here.
You learn the
This is
rules.
whoever's here is 2 hours and 40 minutes in, so they deserve to hear good juicy stuff. I think there is a possibility of like, or maybe I don't think this will actually happen, but I know in the past there was like an idea of like, if you're in the bottom, it's almost like how it is in groups where like people at the bottom get removed from the lobby. So imagine like the last 3 games, it's like the bottom 3 are just going one by one. So if you're in the bottom, you're out.
Ooh.
Next one, you're out. You're out. Something like that, I think. I can't remember exactly. Maybe it was either that or just like something else. But I think something like that has been like flirted with, that idea to like punish the bottom more so that people don't grief and can't grief. Like you're trying to make sure you're not there, you know, because otherwise you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was weird. I don't really care to talk about it. All right. Shout out to those guys. They made the Grands. The Grands was their playground. But there were other people who came to play.
The clutch up thumbnail is going to be their two faces, Clix and
head.
merged together, head to head.
That is exactly what it should be. They made the Grands, but other people came to play. And we'll start off with the 3rd place team that came to play. First team or second team after Clix is to claim a global spot from NA this season. Reet, Cooper, and Curly. What a performance from a trio who I think a lot of people would have been sleeping on. Reet at some point in between this season and last was going to be going to West to play mouse and keyboard as an IGL. And somehow he's now qualified for globals playing with Cooper and Kylie. I don't know how that's happened, but it's happened.
That's an all-time. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in, baby. Reet. Oh my God, what a comeback.
Crazy.
This team had so much storyline aura, quietly.
They really did.
Curly took out Bryce for the game win after getting dropped.
He did. He did.
That's like a nice little poetic justice, I guess you'd call that. And then Cooper kind of, after his amazing vibes trio from last season, left kind of the odd man out with the Sphinx Vadeal thing.
And then had the best season of all 3 of them.
And then had the best season of all 3. Like, let's go. I just love big time storyline aura on this team. Big time storyline aura.
For sure.
I mean, I just first of all, props, shout out to Cooper for IGLing this trio and getting 3rd. I mean, that is an incredible job. As far as I'm looking too, they died pretty much every single game that they had -2 on the first day looks like on the second day we're all top 10s, all within the top 10. So extremely consistent performance out of them. And then obviously, the storyline aura that you guys are talking about, I remember seeing the tweets from Reet being like, I'm going to West, I'm playing mouse and keyboard. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You can't can't be this talent bad, bro. You're Reet, right? And then honestly, shout out to Curly too. Curly's one of those guys that not a lot of people I don't think knew about going into the season, or even before he played with Rise in them. But he's been kind of like quietly on the come up since last chapter. And finally kind of had just his breakout Grands. So, I mean, these guys, unfortunately, this performance, as amazing as it was, they actually had, pretty crazy, like average placement inside the top 10. It just gets overshadowed by the absolute slugfest going on up top. So, unfortunate for those guys, but they played absolutely out of their minds.
Yeah, what do we think? B+, A minus? I think they
for me it's an A+.
Yeah.
So the expectation of this team was not to come in and get 3rd place and like be consistently like just behind as well. It's not even just like they like snuck in their last games. It was like they were consistently like one of those teams that was behind the 2 horse race. Take a global spot was like I think a long shot in many people's opinions on them. For
sure.
And then on top of that, to actually just place 3rd, A+, man.
I think people thought that they were the weakest or most question marks of the so-called Magnificent 7. Shout out to Kelly for shouting that on the broadcast. That was a very fun and surreal moment for me. My wife was pretty pumped too. But but yeah, they totally. You're right. Let's give them a high grade. They totally overperformed. Curly's now at his first LAN, so Like huge again. Shout out. I know T-Church. I know we've all kind of given him his flowers, but yeah, awesome team. Love it.
Yeah, I agree. These guys get an A+ from me.
And Cooper, sorry, gets to go in and he gets to go for another LAN, right?
He does. He gets another
the...
shot at it. You think these guys got a shot at globals? How do you feel about them as a globals team?
I think you probably have to put them like in the mid tier of NA and EU teams, and we'll just kind of like forget about the other regions for a little while. Sorry, Brazil.
This is a team that we need to see how they adapt to the meta, because when they came, and how they plan on learning together and growing together. Because when they initially came together, this might also be a little, we need to be wary here, right? Like this might also be a little bit of a honeymoon trio, because they did form right before Grands. Like, given the consistency that they showed, I think that they have a lot of potential moving forward, but it is going to be about the decisions they make in the coming months of how they're going to continue to prepare together. I think that determines the success of this trio.
Reet has been good on LAN though.
Sorry, he has.
I agree with you. And Reet is one of my favorite players, both on a personal level and on a professional level, but also still being realistic here.
I'm glad you mentioned that, teacher, because that's literally the next thing I was going to say. I think Cooper is the best honeymoon period player of all time. I think when you look at Cooper's career, you will see an amalgamation of unreal honeymoon period results. I think if I was like just a random pro and I'm like, I want to go into a new season and get a good result, mate, give me Cooper, mate. The vibes are going to be great. He's going to play out of his mind, and we're going to like finesse a top 3 in FNCS. That's what's going to happen every time you play with Cooper. So
absolutely,
dude, Levin, you're so good at giving these random titles to players. Like, a lot of people say that I'm like the Peterbot of dad jokes in the comp, right? Like just like totally cooking. You're amazing at like Pink. Pink is the guy that everyone like plays. What did you call the Pink thing? I
felt bad. I felt bad about that because Pink is actually like my friend. That's my guy. But when we were in like game 10 or 11, I was kind of like, if Tjino wins FNCS, that would mean he did just drop Pink and win an FNCS, which is exactly what Vico did last year.
It's like, always the bridesmaid, never the bride kind of thing. Yeah. And then shout out to Pink though. I'm a big fan too. And then you did the same thing with Queasy when we interviewed him. You're like, you're the Grim Reaper. All your teammates underperform after they leave you. What happens? And Queasy's just like, I'm the go-to teammate.
There's something there.
Anyways,
there's more as well, I'm sure, over time that I just don't remember. I just kind of say these things and like hope somebody picks them up. I'm glad someone is picking them up.
I pay attention to these things.
Okay, that's good. Well, that team, unbelievable. Next team, we have to give our flowers, not just to the team, but to Teddy Moon. Because last week when we did the NA bracket, I asked all of you guys that were here, who is that next team to get into the Magnificent Seven, as Teddy coined it? And Teddy's pick was Diminished, Braydz, and Visuals. And they absolutely cooked up a storm in this grand finals. They placed 4th place, far exceeding most people's expectations of them, apart from maybe Teddy, I guess. Teddy, man, what was that? How do you cook that up?
I did believed in these guys from the beginning. I knew Braydz for a little while. When I had a org, he was on the org, and he's like a really talented, really hardworking, really dedicated person. So I knew, and I think a lot of these players, and I actually maybe there's a good conversation that T-Church you'll have some good insight in. Is a lot of these players, when you know they're sticking with the game, and you see them improving, and you see their commitment, and I think in this case. Braydz had played with Visuals and Diminished separately as well, and I think they had all played together in duos. It's just they had a great drop spot. Like when we looked at the drop spot, they had a great drop spot, and it really all came together for them. Even in their scuffed games, they were like running up hills. They got the critical refreshes they needed, and it was just like one of those really special weekends for them. And it's just awesome to see. It's like those are again like just. Like kind of to a lesser extent to the Clix story, like seeing someone who's like starts as an aspiring pro, works their way up into grands and then works their way up into the upper echelon. That's like that's I think one of the reasons why people watch sports or esports or all of these things, right? To follow that story and to feel like, because there's always something in your life that you feel the same way about, right? So it's like such a relatable thing. Your rise through the ranks of X, right? And then it's such a relatable story. So, yeah, amazing. Good stuff.
Yeah, so well, I'm a little bit biased, right? So my pick last week to bust into Magnificent Seven was Bryce. They didn't do that great over the course of the weekend, but they had a couple of things change for them. I think they got contested.
Yeah, they were
but Aminis, Braydz, and Visuals were actually the second team that I would have picked, and I don't remember if I had mentioned that or not, but I definitely remember agreeing with your pick, Teddy. Because, like I said, I've talked about, I know Aminis personally. I reached out to him, and immediately after grand finals to congratulate him, on the achievement and on the accomplishment. Because I've been in their Discord servers. I've hung out with them at Discord calls. I've VOD reviewed with them just as friends to help them out, and bounce ideas off of each other. Right. So I know Aminis understands this game on a super duper high level. And honestly, there's another player in the community who posted on Twitter over the course of the weekend. I don't know if you've heard of him, Teddy, but Peanut Brain. My good friend Peanut Brain did post a analysis of kind of a Aminis play style, and he was talking about how Aminis views risk versus reward and how he mitigates risk for his trio. There's a couple of rotates that they made that I'm not seeing a lot of other teams make. Simply to mitigate risk. They're thinking 2 and 3 steps ahead of the rest of the lobby. And that is a strategy that you can replicate at globals. So this is another team that come globals time, if they have a good drop spot, that's kind of what I'm worried about, is if they're going to get the respect on the global scale.
Yeah.
This is a team, though, that if they do get an uncontested drop, and it's even a decent drop, we could see these guys sneak into, the top 5, top 8 type of situation in globals.
So what is this, an A plus? I feel like this is a huge overperformance. This is like, wait, I shouted them out as a good team. I did not think they were going to be one of the LAN qualifiers, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have to.
A plus.
Yeah,
A plus. One thing I'll see on like their gameplay from what I watch is like they were that one team that I think gave Clix's trio a problem with like low and mid ground, where they were so good. And I'm glad you mentioned risk versus reward. Shout out to Peanut Brain. I don't know Peanut Brain too well, but maybe I got to check out their analysis now. Because you see that in just the fact that there was so many of these end games where, again, all 3 of them as a trio going into zone 11, right? Like that doesn't happen for a lot of teams when you're constantly in these end games, because they were there every single game. Their average placement on day 1 especially must have been mental. Like I can't remember exactly what it was, but it would have been silly. They fragged out when needed. Just unbelievable team. Really excited to see sort of where they go from here, right? Because again, it's like we talk about, can they push into the Mag 7? Displacement pushes you in, but can you stay it? Can you keep this level up?
That's the hard part, right?
That's the hardest part. Yeah,
that's the hardest part. It's once you get there, can you stay? Right.
So,
they had an average placement on day 1 of 5.33.
Bro, it was like they were there. I kid you not. It's like, again, when I mentioned, I said the thing about like drone shot, right? You don't see a team during the end game because we're just watching Peterbot, understandably. But then you see the drone shot, and they were always there front side zone. It was silly every single time.
Sitting in their airport hangar,
chilling in the airport hangar front side zone, and yeah, like they would be on there'd be times where they were maybe more on congested side and Clix is on dead side, and then zone would flip and it's like it swaps around, and like they were just chilling all the time. So yeah, really, really, really impressed with those guys.
And they played things really patiently too. They got into this weird mid-game engagement one game with Bucky, and they ended up winning, and they played that fight really patiently. I think they rebooted halfway through it, so those are the moments in a tournament that can it can totally go sideways. And every single time it looked like it was going to go sideways, they found a way to make a play. So insane.
Got to respect it. Look, before we get into the next wave of teams, I got a little game.
Another game. Let's go.
Okay. So, which one am I going to choose? There's a couple options for me to choose. So, all right, cool. The highest damage ratio title has gone to 3 different players in the last 4 NA Central FNCS finals. Can you name them and rank them appropriately? Who are the NA FNCS average
over the last
ratio
over the
leaders?
last 4?
Over the last 4
And it's
NA
all
FNCS
different
finals.
players. It's all different players.
Well, it's 3 players. 3 players.
Cold, Agers. I'm gonna guess on the third one that it's Pete.
The
Setty?
only one that I could see it also being was Veno.
Okay.
But I think I like Agers. I think I like the Agers pick a little bit better.
Also, so
What about
Teacher
Poyo
said-
though? What about
Well,
Poyo though?
Teacher says cold, Aegis, Peterbot, and Teddy, you'll go in.
Okay, I'm gonna just to make it different. I'm gonna go Peterbot, Poyo, cold. I guess that's not
Peterbot,
that different, and that's
Poyo,
not like that.
cold.
That's not that brave of a take because there's.
But
I
which?
actually
But is it
would-
like?
I
Is it?
actually
But
would've
who did it
swapped-
twice?
Okay, I'm gonna go
Peterbot with Poyo, to be honest.
I'm gonna
with you.
go. Who did it twice? I think Cold did it twice, and then Peterbot and then Poyo.
Okay. Is that your order of the ranking as well?
I thought
Yeah,
Agers
but
did it twice.
to be honest, I don't know. I don't really know at all. So
Okay.
I think Agers is a good option too, and I think Veno is probably a good option too. So like now I'm just probably over engineering it a little
Yeah,
bit.
you
so.
guys are overthinking.
So give
and
me those 3. I'll lock them in. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Well, I will say that T-Church absolutely cooked up a storm because it is cold, Aegis, Peterbot. And in that reverse order. So Peterbot had the most Chapter 5 Season 2, 3.0 damage ratio. Then Aegis last season had a 2.28 damage ratio. And then Cold in Chapter 6 Season 2, this season, 2.0. It says 2.01 here, but it was 2.02. And then Cold in Chapter 5 Season 3, 1.99 after that insane day 2 comeback that he and Acorn had. So yeah,
Did you say
Teddy
Peterbot
cooks
had
up.
a 3.0?
bro, I don't even understand. I don't even we shouldn't even get into it because it doesn't make sense.
It's
Like,
not-
Peterbot
it's
is
especially
little.
that
It's
point.
like he's when you watch him play though. It's like he's neuralinked into Fortnite. Like it's
No,
directly
literally.
connected with his brain.
I don't
Like,
know if
it's
you
just his hands.
I don't know if you watch Booga content. Anytime Booga talks about Peterbot, he only talks about how that kid is literally giving up his life to the game, and that's about what you would expect from somebody
Yeah.
at his level. It takes multiple years of commitment to get to where Peter's at, and that's why you don't see a lot of these other guys at that level.
For sure.
Facts, absolute facts. Yeah. Well, another quick one. Let's get on to some of the next teams because this next sort of wave of teams are, I think, the teams people expected to maybe be in some of the positions that Reet, Cooper Curly, and Minish, Braydz, and Visuals were. And this next team in particular were the reigning champions, Acorn, Poyo, and Aegis. They were the reigning champions. It's been a bit of a rough season for them, and I think a lot of people could acknowledge that, but people still expected them to come through and compete, and they did not do that in any capacity. I love these 3, but they did not compete to win.
I mean, okay, I'm going to come to their defense a little bit just to start us off because they did land, it was Mass Meadows, right? And so they pulled, 0 zones day 1? Nothing, nada, right? And they still had a decent match history. Bad for them, right? But if we're talking about the grand scheme of things, they did have a decent match history. They came out on day 2 and they played a bit better, first, second, 3 of the games, but then kind of dudded the other 3 games. So overall rating, I definitely have to give them a B-. They did get some bad zones on day 1, but being the reigning champs, they were another team that I really didn't expect this to be a 2-horse race. I really expected it to be more of a 3-horse race.
Yep.
Because I did expect them to be up there competing with Higgs, Eomzo, and
It was a
Clix.
3-horse race, and one team didn't quite show up.
Yeah.
I think B-, C+. I think we had really high expectations for them. If you just go back and watch our preview podcast, right, we had them as the
Absolutely.
second best team in the lobby, and they came 5th. So that's an underperformance. So you guys got to be a B- or a C.
Yeah, I do think luck of the bracket though. I do think if they were up against Clix, I would have picked Clix over them. I can't remember if I said that though, but I do think that I was quite tentative about them last week. And it was partly just because I felt people were underrating Pete. But I remember last week talking about how like the level they had to play at to win is not
hard to repeat.
Yeah, like that's not, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but like that's not their regular level, right?
Yep.
Like Acorn had to perfectly IGL 12 out of 12 games. That just doesn't really happen, you know, a lot of the time.
And
had to play like
Peterbot at the end.
Right? You had to clutch, you had to have a crazy clutch. Poyo had a clutch. Aegis had many clutches, and he had to basically play like Peterbot light for them to win.
And it was Acorn in Major 1.
It's Major 1 Acorn as well, right?
Major
they already
1
had
Merchant,
the 12
yeah.
spot. And that's one thing that we had talked about, I think, a while ago of like, hey, man, I think this is as good as it gets for this team just because they have that spot now. And historically, we've seen with Acorn, you know, they just sort of chill for the rest of the year. So I know the expectations for a lot of people were compete with Pete. My personal expectations, I didn't think that was going to happen. But I also did think that Pete was going to run away with it, which didn't happen, right? So I'm not trying to say that to be like, I'm right. Because obviously I was wrong on one part of that. But I didn't think that, especially just from talking to like Acorn about the vibes of the trio as well at times this season, like the vibes last season weren't amazing. Even when they won. They got better by the end when Acorn was on 0 ping or whatever, but it weren't amazing. And then even after winning with all the things that happened with the whole trio swapping around, the vibes only got worse. Then like they had the weird groups performance, and so the vibes were, I think, probably the lowest they had been in this trio ever, which didn't inspire me going into Grands. In the Grands where I knew Peterbot was going to be hungry to get revenge. So my expectations were probably a bit lower than the average person. With that being said, still underperformed that. So I'd agree with you guys. I'd go I'd probably go a B-. I think it was tough because they were trying to play height a bunch and they just couldn't quite figure it out. They did at times on the second day. Day one was a bit rough.
They got psychoed by Peterbot a few times too.
They did. Vivid did some great analysis on the broadcast because he sort of talked about how like you saw early day one, they tried it didn't quite work. Then by the end of day one, they kind of figured it out a bit. And even though it didn't translate that well, maybe they got win game 6. No, that was visuals. I got win game 6. Day 2, they came out and won the first game because they had figured it out by the last couple of games at the end. But they just at that point they just couldn't get back in the race.
It was actually really similar to Queasy's performance on EU, I thought, where they had some wins.
That's a good point.
Some big moments, but they just could never quite put it together consistently, and they could never quite find the coherent winning strategy that worked game across game.
It's funny because this next team's performance actually reminded me a bit more of Queasy's performance in Booga, Threats, and Rapid, just because they obviously landed the same POI, and I thought they had a lot of the same struggles, and they actually play a lot of the similar way. Like Booga this season and all of this year really has been about early height and playing early height, and they did that at times during these lobbies. They got a win from it in one of the games. I forgot what game they won.
They won the first game. They won 2 games, I think. They won 2 games, didn't they?
Yeah, they won 2 games. They won the first game and they won a game on day 2, I think it was. And it's funny because when they won game 1, I was like, oh, they're doing the Queasy again because Queasy won game 1 in the EU. I was like, the parallels here are intense. But again,
only other team to win multiple games on the weekend, by the way.
Yeah. It's interesting. I want to know how you guys feel because, you know, I'm EU and I'm considered Booga hater. So I'm not going to weigh in at first here. But this was a team I think a lot of people, especially with the whole Surge trading controversy that we've seen this season, their team I think a lot of people expected to do a lot better than this. I say a lot better, like marginally better in placement.
Yeah, listen, I thought they would be a threat. And then in some games they went down too rapidly.
That's number 2.
For me, listen, when I first started getting into competitive Fortnite, and watching the game, religiously, I was a big time Booga fanboy. All right, because it was that that's the time period it was. He had just won World Cup. He's rolling into Chapter 2. He's still one of the most dominant players in the world, but we're talking about Chapter 6 Booga. All right, this isn't World Cup Booga anymore. if he were to grind and to do the things that the other players do, obviously I'm thinking, Bugha could probably get back up to a top 3, top 2 consistent level, maybe even when, talking about him winning grands again. But for me, this team landed kind of right where I expected them to. Somewhere between that 5th to 8th place range, which has been really consistent for Bugha for the past couple of chapters.
Yep.
Unless he wants to just like randomly lock in for a season,
Yep.
Sure.
Unless he needs to steal an FNCS championship from Canada, then he
exactly. Well, then that's so for me, they're just a flat B, like maybe a B plus. Like I thought that there were some bright moments from them, but overall they kind of performed almost exactly how I expected them to.
Let me ask you guys a question. So obviously they had some wins. They were up in the top 3. I think they were obviously winning for a portion of the tournament. They won the first game. And then they just had a bunch of games where they went down, like a bunch of no-point games, a bunch of mid games. Like, what do you guys think? Like, why does that happen to some teams and not to others? Like, what's the fully coherent strategy that needs to be in place? Like, is it partially luck? Like, what's the explanation for that versus the teams that are just like dynamite consistent?
I didn't watch their mid games, so I can't speak conclusively because I just haven't seen their mid games. But if it's anything linked to what Queasy was talking about, because obviously Queasy tweeted and they landed a similar spot, I think the way the lobby played out, surge-wise, just meant that they actually just weren't as comfortable as I think we all thought they were going to be. Like, I think the one thing you would have said about this team going into grounds was like, for surge, they're going to be fine, so they should be making it to every endgame. Right? Like this whole surge trading thing, like, oh, they're going to be set. And we know that didn't quite pan out exactly the way. There was still a lot of it. Don't get me wrong. People were sat in their bases and whatnot. But I just think the actual lobby didn't play. And that happens in grands. Like that happens in a lot of grands where like the lobby just doesn't play how you think it will.
Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Exactly. Like that happened a lot last grands. I felt like the lobby in EU specifically like didn't play how most people prepped for.
Yeah.
But for some people, it does. For some people, like the way the teams around you move and the plan you have in place, like it still does work. It's not linear for everybody. It's like it can vary. So I'd assume that sort of was like the problem for them. A lot of similar problems that Queasy had over in EU.
Seaport can also be a really strange POI sometimes, just because of the way that part of the map is like shaped. Like half of it is water, and anytime you have those like. You see this with like the chapter 2 map when we had Coral Castle or whatever it was called in the northwestern corner.
Coral Castle.
Yeah.
Anytime you have these large like swaths of the chapter 3 map, the whole right side, like half of it was water.
Yeah, by where the rock statue.
Yeah, it always forces the players back in towards the middle, right? And so sometimes you just get like there's a lot of I guess there's a less flexibility in the strategy, right? Because you kind of know where people are going. And then that can also make it easy for other people to agree with your strategy because there's only so many different things that you can do.
For sure.
Yeah. So I think this seems a B.
B, yeah.
I think this is a
B for Bugha.
B for Bugha. We move on. B for Bugha. The next scene then, Canada, Sphinx, Bolts. What are we grading these guys? What do we think of them?
It's so crazy. Like, when they were on the broadcast and playing, they looked good every time. Like they had this where they perfectly baited. They third-partied a team in one game, the Siluk and Jarg off spawn fight, and they basically baited both those teams to rotate into them, and they got free kills on both. And then you just like it never came together for them. Was it the zones were so far away? Like it was like all north zones, and they were on the furthest south POI. Like what was the issue with this?
I think they figured it out day 2. Like I think day 2 was much better for them. It's funny because I feel like I can't really remember a lot of the NA mid games outside of what was going on with Pete and Clix, but I remember not seeing them in end games much and being like, oh, no, man, where are these guys in end games? But then the end games where we were spectating them, like they were doing pretty good, and I was like, all right. I think day 1 they were like 8th or something. Like they were like 7th or 8th. Like it was just really bad. And then like day 2, I think they were like quite good, like a top 3, top 4 team on day 2. Which is kind of like their day 2 performance is kind of what I expected from them this weekend. Like I thought they were good, like the team that was probably going to be like that 3rd or 4th team, and taking a global spot, but it didn't quite pan out.
They were confusing. They were a little Sphinx-like, you could say.
I think of any team that we've talked about today, if we want to talk about, the impact of zones, like I think this one is the most valid. Because you can literally see it in their match history. I mean, they get all those North zones and it's just like consistently dead. Like, right. It's not like they were, they weren't necessarily not making it to in game, right? But they're making it like to like that 7th, like 8 zone, like maybe like first moving has just revealed itself and they're dying, right? Like that's the point of the game that they were making it to on day 1. And then, all of a sudden day 2, they come out 3rd, 4th, they're consistent top 10. They have 5 games in the top 5 actually on day 2. So I think I hate saying that like RNG things are having an impact on these teams, but I think this team might be one that argument's a little bit more valid. But even so, I think you have to take everything onto yourself as a player and say, we just didn't prepare well enough. Yeah, we just didn't prepare well enough for North zones. So for that reason,
only World Cup Bugha and Benji can control the zones, right? So
exactly,
and Zeke,
exactly,
and Zeke and Levin is like apprentice level right now of controlling the zones.
They don't let me. No, they don't.
I completely agree. I completely agree, T-Church. It's like you have to work on what you can work on. You have to control what you can control. All the championship teams, all the championships. They take a little bit of luck, right? There's like you could put an asterisk on every single FNCS championship. The team that won, they had some great stroke of luck. The team that lost, a team that lost had, they did a big pot when they could have splashed, right? And there's always these good or bad luck things, but I was reading it was Bolts or Sphinx on Twitter, and they were happy with the way they played given the zones and this.
That's where I was,
and they seemed like they're going to stick together and they're going to take a stab at Major 3 together, which I was heartened to see because I do think this team fits together well, and I do think this team has a lot of potential, and I do want to see what they can do on the right day.
That's exactly where I was going with it too. If we're talking about rating these teams' performances, can't give them a great grade because they really did underperform, but I'm also not going to bash them for underperforming because I don't think the underperformance was, you can't lay all of it at the foot of this trio. They did have like a little bit of bad luck on the day. So for that reason, I give them just a flat B, definitely had take some lessons from the hindsight. But ultimately, I definitely think that, given better circumstances, we would have seen this team in the top 3, top 4.
So question for both of you. I think after last season and how it went, a lot of us sort of gave up on our bolts will be the Peterbot stopper. And then obviously the market changed. And so we had a more committed bolts this season. Do you feel like we are closer to the return of bolts, the Peterbot stopper? Where do you stand sort of on bolts?
Depends. Seems like it depends on what the Federal Reserve sets interest rates. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think it's good to see him back and committed to the game, and having another like cold Poyo level, super cracked, super talented player.
Always going to be good for the game.
Yeah, and I did see on Twitter he really wanted to be invited to the Pro-Am. And he wasn't, and I think sometimes that's always like a good wake up call, which is like, you got to go out, you got to win championships, you got to win FNCSs to get that kind of love from Epic. So yeah, hopefully. Absolutely. Yeah, I still believe, Levin. I think if that's the question, I still believe, but yeah, I think to Teacher's point about Peterbot a little while, I don't want that to go to that one to get fully lost. Is to be the best, you have to be super, super committed, and that's just what it takes. Like Bugha dropped Craze for going to prom, and like Craze obviously should have went to prom, right? He only gets to go once, but like that's the the cost of being really great at anything. especially something as competitive as this, where you get to play your favorite game and make hundreds of thousands of dollars.
If you're gonna drop your job for meme coins, I'm gonna be skeptical. That's all I have to say about it.
Fair enough. But he's young, right?
He's young. I think that's the thing with Bolts. He's young, but he's got time. You know, it's not like it's over for him. Yeah, I didn't feel like we got that Bolts, like the Bolts of like end of 2024 in this Grands, but hopefully we get that Bolts come Grands.
I got a good one. I got a good one. I still believe he can bring the thunder.
You know what? I like that's a bit more tame. You know, that's a bit more tame. That one has a bit more finesse.
That one.
That sounds like something I might have said on a good day casting in chapter 3, you know?
Yeah, of
like,
course.
You
of course.
know?
Absolute patrician level casting from 11.
Of course. All right then. Our final team that I want us to discuss here on NA. Muzz, Yapko, and Rise finishing 8th.
This was a rough tournament for these guys.
Yeah.
Rough.
Yeah. They kind of just got gapped.
Trio.
You know? Like when the initial split happened, where like they got rid of Clix, they brought in Yapko, and then Clix went to play with Eomzo and Higgs. Like day one of that happening, like as it happened, I think a lot of people thought relatively even, right? Then very quickly people were like, oh, this Eomzo trio is better. Like Clix won here, like he got the better trade. But then there was still a lot of people who were like, oh, they got Yapko, so like that's a good deal for them. Like I think they would be happier than you know, they'll be happy with how things went. And then just over time, the gap between those two teams has just increased. And I think this performance, I think this was a rough one, just because if I'm being honest, there were a lot of end games in my head, at least I remember, where they were like a very potent part of it. Like, you know, they were on height a bunch. Like, it's one of those weird things where, again, they come 8th, but it's a harsh placement. I think it's just the nature of NA being so stacked at the top and like being so close. Like a couple different things happening in some of these games, and they're like in 5th instead of 8th, you know, and it looks a bit different.
It's hard to be a Magnificent 7 team and come in 8th, right? That's just, you know, that's just the math doesn't add up. I think the first time I was on the 11 2K network, it wasn't even an episode of Fantasia. We previewed heats or group stage for Major 1. And I actually think, you know, I was a little more nervous than I am now. Not as many puns. Not as many puns. You know, I was coming into my own. But I do think one of the things we did talk about, Levin, was that if you make a decision as bold as to drop Clix in the way that they did it mid-season, in a way where it felt intuitively to every Clix fan that he wasn't going to find a good trio. He kind of fell into this amazing trio. So all's well that ends well. It's going to put a lot of pressure on you. It's going to put a lot of pressure on you. And there's going to be a lot of like, I don't know, maybe you go on his Twitter or whatever, in his Twitch chat, there's probably a lot of people saying, told you so, type of stuff, right? I think it's a hard decision. It's a hard decision to make.
And we say this about Clix. That's not even the most recent one they got to deal with. They were playing with Curly earlier this season. And look at where Curly is now playing at the Global Championship, you know?
For sure.
And so it definitely is tough there. I'm a big fan of Rise and Muzz. Muzz is like the nicest guy on earth, so you can never hate Muzz.
Muzz must have one of the highest approval ratings of any Fortnite pro.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's what you get when you're just super talented and super good. And I'm a big Rise fan. Rise has been on the channel actually. You know, he's been on the channel. He was on one of our videos.
Fans, Rise.
That's my guy.
I'm a big fan of this trio. I was disappointed to see them kind of like underperform over the course of the weekend. But, you know, Levin, like you said, this region is stacked at the top. And if you're not consistently punching away, getting top 5s, like you're going to get left behind, you know? And I look at their in game, like I'm looking at their match history right now. And I look at, you know, 17th, 23rd, 13th, 13th, 9th, 8th, like 17th. That's about half of their games right there. And like, you want to be, you know, prove yourself as a top 3 or top 5 trio on this region. Like those are the games that you absolutely can't have.
I think that's actually part of what makes it harder for me, because now I'm looking at a match history. I'm like, they're actually one of the better endgame teams, I still reckon. Like if you're looking at the Mag 7, If let's say we're doing the Mag 8 now, if we're adding a Minish to it, right?
Yep.
If we're looking at the Mag 8, right, those top 8 teams, I think
Excellent 8.
if I was ranking the excellent 8 on like who are the best endgame teams, like they might be like 4th, you know, like they might be top half of that. Like I think when they get to endgame, they're one of the better teams, and I do have such fond memories of them from the weekend being prominent in endgames, but there were just too many games where that wasn't happening in comparison to the rest of them, and that's what really cost you. So, and now it gets tight, right? There's only 2 spots in the next
FNCS for LAN, right?
Yeah,
and
only 2 spots. Yapko's gone back to EU.
Yapko's gone back to EU, and I believe we have 3 teams that we all think should make it: Buga, Kanata, and this team. So one of these teams is either going to go west, or miss out on globals, which is like kind of the harsh reality of where we are in 2025. And Yapko, obviously, you know, I might be the number 1 Yapko defender. He's back to EU, and I'm curious to see where he ends up. He ends up 11, but they have a third. None of those 2 teams above them seem like they're going to split, right? I've heard nothing from Buga about him splitting, and I've heard nothing. The Kanata team seems pretty smitten with each other. So where do they go? Who do they pick up?
I would be curious to know where. I don't know if there is like an individual fault within the Rapid Threats Booga team, because a part of me is like, knowing Booga, there will be another snake in it where they basically like make the best version of those 2 teams. Like the best 3 players from those 3 teams, or from those 2 teams, sorry, will just make one team, leaving the other team in the dust to like have to go out to West.
Booga
I don't know what that team looks like.
I was going to say Booga Threats and Buzz. We're going to bring back basically the Chapter 2 trio.
I don't think that's the best version of that team. Maybe no, I don't know. Let us know in the comments section below what you think happens with those teams.
Maybe Craze.
Right.
I feel like Craze seems like probably like would be the number 1 draft pick of just someone who like
a good point.
pops back in who
they might be digging for they might be having to do some scouting in the off season, you know,
but because they specifically picked Yapko. I think of Yapko as more of like, you know, like the Thomas HD, more like Surge. We need him. We need to set him up in the right space. Great aim. Get Surge for us. I don't know if Craze is that player, but maybe they can change their place. They have to adjust their play style a little bit for a new team member.
And we're a season away from seeing the meta, you know. So we still got Star Wars season,
sure.
then Major Free season. So,
but I do want to call it out, right? There's 2 land spots left.
Yep.
And 3 teams
that need a qual.
It's tough.
3 teams that need to qual, and that is going. So it's like we had Cinema in this grand finals, and then guess what? Next grand finals, we get Cinema. Yep. Would you look at that?
Cinema. Yeah.
Come
Fortnite.
on!
What a great time what a great 2 years to be a Fortnite.
Fan,
in terms of just the events you've had to watch. Look, I want to say at this point, if you are still listening to the episode here, comment down below. Absolute Cinema in all caps, just Absolute Cinema in all caps, so we know you made it this far. This is the longest episode of F&Tasia's, episode 50, so it's a big one for us. One of the last episodes left. Big 5-0. Longest episode ever. We have Pro-Am next week, which should be fun, or Pro-Am discussions next week, because Pro-Am's coming up on the horizon. Did we give that team a grade? Maz's team? What was their grade?
C.
I was going to go C+. I was going to go C+. I don't want to be too harsh because they are great when they make it to in-game.
You know, if I go back to school, I'm taking whatever classes you guys are teaching.
These grades. Nice grades, yeah. I'm just tired, man. I'm like relaxed now. I got my lights all mood lighting, you know.
For sure. I have the sun shining in my eyes, so I'm like gaining energy as we go. I have some EU takes. Can I fire them away? Can I rattle them off, Levin?
Before you give me some EU takes, final game for you guys today.
Ooh.
It's a bit of a crawl. We're always nice with the games.
We're nice with the games today.
Who is the only player between NA Central and the EU Grands to get 0 kills across both days?
Was it Fallen? Was it from the that trio that tried the grief, quote unquote grief?
You got the right trio.
I don't know the rest.
You got the
Higher?
right
Was
trio.
that one of them? No, Higher. Was
You had Fallen, Nitro, and Dutraz. So it's one of those three, and it wasn't
Okay.
Fallen.
I'll take Nitro. You can have Dutras.
I'll take Dutraz.
It was Jutraz. Jutraz did not get a single kill across.
Send Dutraz
Yo,
to
you know
Alcatraz.
his stocks are dropping in that in his little Discord friend groups, man. They're not gonna let him live that down for the rest of the time that he plays this game.
Hopefully they can
Oh,
learn.
God.
They can learn a lesson, right? We talked about all these transformations of people, and hopefully this is the beginning of a journey of transformation for these
I hope
players.
so. hope
I
so.
lied about it being the last game. More negativity.
Yes.
This is
So
not
let's
my
do another
forte.
Let's do another one. Different angle.
Oh, I love hating.
Okay, tell
Can
me.
you name the top 5 worst damage ratio players in the NA Central Grand Finals?
Probably all three of those guys. Right?
I'll give you a hint. It's only one of them.
Okay, so then it's what Dutraz for sure, right?
But
Just stick with him. Ride the horse we know.
okay.
The Peterbot of the bottom of the lobby.
The Peterbot of not doing damage.
The Peterbot of being the exact opposite of Peterbot.
Oh man, shout out to Jutras, man. That's tough. No kills.
But
But
this is
How
the beginning.
bad-
This
how
could
bad
be the
was
beginning of
damage
his journey.
ratio? Do you have that number?
so I'm gonna just tell you the truth. He actually isn't on it. The top bottom 5.
really?
He might have
Okay.
not had a kill, but he had a better damage ratio than one
Okay,
of
so
his
maybe
teammates.
Nitro. Maybe Nitro.
Anyone
I saw-
else though?
No,
Fortnite pros are against Nitro in all of its forms.
That's true. That's true.
I
Your-
do.
your
I did
dog's
see the
against
Kinch.
Nitro.
I did see the Kinch stats, and I'm
Okay.
kind of mad I didn't memorize the tweet now, but I did see Fallen on that list. So I'm 99%
is on that
sure.
list.
Okay.
Yes, Fallen is on that list.
There's another trio that's just above them. I'm gonna go with Zaire. Being
Zaire is on that list.
one of those 5.
On the money. On the money.
That's a cook.
I'm gonna say. Are anybody? Is there multiple people in like on a trio on that list?
So I was actually gonna say my next hint that I will give you is that nobody, like, there's not 2 on one team.
Okay. Then I'm gonna go with Nerface. I'm gonna go with Seek, and I'm gonna go with Zackles.
So Nerface is not on the list.
Okay.
Seek is not on the list. Zackles is on the list. So you have
No,
3 out of 5.
Zackles is not good.
Way to go.
You have
I don't
3
know.
out of 5.
I don't even think that I can come close to what Teachers just did. That was a cook. I was
Teacher
very
is
impressed.
actually cooking. Bloody hell, yeah. He's locked into just the bottom of the leaderboard.
I came up from coaching mid players. Like
I'm sure all your players love to hear that now.
No, but
Yeah,
that's
I was-
true.
I mean, it's
I
the
know,
truth, right?
I
It's
know.
and a lot of them from the same time that I was coaching have now made grand finals. So Zackles, Thedic, like all these guys, we all kind of came up together, right? So
There's
it's good
lots
to
of
see them succeed as well.
coaches and people involved in orgs or whatever who watch these FNCSs and they're like, oh, like hopefully I get my guy gets in top 15 or something.
Yeah,
like
no,
that,
that's
right?
true.
And you're-
No, that's true.
I used to always look for the zoom outs, like, oh, do I see Moon? Where's Moon? Where's Moon? Where's Moon? Where's Moon?
Right.
But yeah, I know. Obviously now I get to enjoy it like everyone else, other than I'm stamping the Peterbot takes that blah blah.
Yeah. Well, look, the last 2 are Aoxy and Catman.
Aoxy
kinda surprised
Aoxy had
me.
a tough
Cat-
weekend for sure.
Yeah.
And Catman,
Catman, yeah. Catman amplifying
Catman.
losses.
Catman versus
Catman.
Sandman. Who comes out
I
on
mean,
top?
look, sounds like Sandman comes out on top. All right, Teddy, give us your EU takes to wrap us up.
Congrats to Denmark.
Yes.
Thank you to Veno,
Yes.
Vico, and Flickzy. Even my brother, who doesn't watch Fortnite, texted me, "Hey, Veno, I love this guy. I love Vico." He's like, "I also
way.
love Vico." Yeah.
That's sick.
So he's like, "That's really interesting that they did that." I do. On the other side of the coin, I feel very bad for Malibuca because it did look like, he was waxing away with it.
Oh, this guy.
Let's go. And then I'm nervous about a trio. And then you know the trio I'm going to say, Levin, because I told you before.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about Cammy, Setty, and Hari. And I wonder if this is going to be the first LAN in a while where we don't either see them euphorically happy after a win or hilariously miserable after a win.
Probably both if they get there.
And I'm worried. I'm worried. It's too bad. It could be the end of an era.
You will enjoy listening to Coach Harry talk about them on the episode this week.
I can't wait.
Sure.
I love Harry's takes.
Harry is amazing. I love Harry, man. He doesn't know it, and this is too deep into the podcast, so he'll never see this because he doesn't bother listening. But I love Harry, honestly. Whenever Harry is not on an app, I'm like, just deep down.
Harry's the GOAT. Harry is the GOAT.
All right. Well, that makes our longest episode ever. I think this episode is like 3 hours and 40 minutes, which is insane. Something like that. Yeah. If you manage to listen to all of this, you're a sicko, like proper sicko, but we love you for it. You will never get an episode this long ever again in F&Tasia history. So enjoy it while you can.